Chapter 1309. The sound of Lu Ye's divine sense reverberated in the treasury. Haitang, who was about to leave, sensed it and immediately stopped, looking at Lu Yi in confusion. Lu Yi still looked up and shouted, "Come out!" A cloud of fog appeared out of thin air as far as the eye could see. It was the same fog that appeared when the treasury was first opened. Just like before, the fog twisted and distorted, and a sinister voice came from it. "What is it?" "Senior." Lu Yi bowed before speaking again. "Junior would like to confirm something with Senior, and I would like to ask for Senior's permission." The voice from the fog sounded a little impatient. "Speak." Lu Yi said. "Senior said before that since Junior has passed the test of the Spectre ship, then Junior can choose anything on this ship and take it away. Is that so?" The fog said. "That is correct. So, have you made your choice?" Lu Yi nodded. "I have." "Since you have a choice, then just take it. Why ask me? But there is only one chance, so. Do you choose the orb in front of you?" Lu Yi looked down at the orb on the stone platform in front of him, and slowly shook his head. He looked up again and saw Haitang looking over in confusion, raised his hand and pointed. "I choose her." Haitang was stunned. The many crew members standing behind Haitang outside the treasury were slightly stunned, and their expressions all twisted. Waves of ghostly wails and howls came from there, as if they were extremely dissatisfied with Lu Ye's choice. Even the fog in the treasury twisted and changed a little faster, no longer as calm as before. Instead, it seemed a little angry. Impossible. Lu Yi was calm and unruffled. "Senior, are you going to go back on your word?" Junior has confirmed with Senior again. Since the rules are as such, then Junior dares to ask, "Is Senior apprentice sister Haitang part of the ship?" An unwilling voice came out from the fog. "Yes." "Since she is, then I can choose her, unless Senior intends to go back on his word." Lu Yi looked in the direction of the fog, his expression firm. "But, no buts." Lu Yi interrupted the fog rudely. As for whether it would cause any bad consequences, the various encounters on the Spectre ship made him understand one thing. And that was that although this place was strange and dangerous, as long as he acted within the rules, there would be no problem. When the fog appeared before him, it had read out the rules of the treasury. So Lu Ye's decision at this moment did not break or jump out of the rules. He was sure that the fog would not refuse him. Of course, whether this mattered or not, he had to give it a try. It would have been fine if he hadn't noticed it, but since he had, Lu Ye's conscience wouldn't be at ease if he didn't try. After being interrupted by Lu Yi, the mist seemed to be in great discomfort. It twisted violently for a while before it spoke again. "Brat, do you know what kind of treasure the pearl in front of you is?" "I don't know." Lu Yi shook his head honestly. "If this pearl is the Great Yin spiritual pearl, it can help you." I don't. Lu Yi raised his hand to cover his ears, and shook his head continuously. Of course, covering his ears was just for show, and had no practical use. He also sealed his divine sense while he was at it. The fog shook violently. For so many years, whether intentional or not, many cultivators had wandered on the Spectre ship. Not to mention those who did not complete the test. There were still some who passed the test. But those who passed the test were not dazzled by the treasures in this treasury. But when it was this boy's turn, she wanted to tell him about the many wonders of the spirit orb, and he actually did not listen. After a while, Lu Yi opened his mind again, and the fog's voice immediately came to his ears. "Not to mention anything else, if the spirit orb is sold, it's worth at least 1,000,000 spirit jades. So boy, do you know its great value?" The fog was obviously waiting for this moment. She did not have the time to explain the wonders of the spirit orb to Lu Yi, and directly told him how much it was worth. Of course, 1,000,000 spirit jades was just a measure of value. In the starry sky, this kind of treasure was generally priceless. Lu Yi was not tempted at all, and still looked at the fog stubbornly. "I'll choose her. You just tell me if it's okay or not." Outside the treasury, the screams and howls were getting louder and louder. Qin Zong and the others' faces were all distorted. It seemed that if they were not restricted by certain restrictions, and could not enter the treasury, they would have rushed in and torn him to pieces. The crew had always been a part of the Spectre ship. They were keen to see others in the same situation as them. but they did not want to see anyone escape from the specter ship. The fog no longer shook, and the voice became much gentler. Boy, are you sure you want to make this choice? Yes. Lu Yi nodded heavily. Ha 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 ha. The fog shook, and seemed to be very happy. What an interesting boy. For so many years, there has never been anyone like you. It's really an eye-opener. The voice became serious. In that case, you can take her away. Lu Yi just wanted to give it a try, but he did not expect it to succeed. He immediately bowed. Thank you, Senior. I was rude just now, please forgive me. He turned around and strode toward Haitang, who was standing there at a loss. Since the fog appeared again, Haitang was dumbfounded after hearing Lu Ye's request. She never thought that Lu Yi would make such a request at the last moment. She also never thought that she would have any hope of escaping from the specter ship. Since the day she fell into this place and failed the test, she knew that her life would end here. She would continue to weaken here until she vanished into thin air and completely turned into nutrients for the ghost ship. She would not even become a part of the ghost ship like Qin Zong and the other crew members. The day she disappeared, there would be no trace of her in this world. She had already mentally prepared herself. The warning and information sharing to Lu Yi was just a kind of mentality to help. She did not expect anything else. Since she was a person who was going to die, she just had to accept her fate. But she did not expect that at the last moment, there would be such a twist. When Lu Yi made that request, she even suspected that she had heard wrong. When Lu Yi and the fog argued, she was so grateful that she almost shed tears. At this moment, seeing Lu Yi walking toward her, Haitang could no longer hold back. Tears fell from the corner of her eyes. She choked and shouted, Junior brother Lu, let's talk outside. Let's go. Lu Yi called out to her. With one hand on the hilt of the Pan Shan saber, he was ready to go. Although the fog agreed to let him take Haitang out, there was still some trouble at the entrance of the treasure house. Qin Zong and the others were like ghosts, wanting to eat him alive. But because of the rules, they could not set foot in the treasure house. If he wanted to go out now, he would have to fight. Haitang obviously noticed that something was wrong. She quickly followed behind Lu Yi, focused her mind, and secretly urged her spiritual power. However, to Lu Ye's surprise, as he continued to approach, the state of Qin Zong and the others also changed. The cries and howls quickly disappeared, and the ferocious looks on the faces of the many crew members, blocking the entrance of the treasury, turned into gentle smiles. Their eyes were full of praise and admiration as they looked at Lu Yi, and then at Haitang, which turned into envy. These guys, what the hell are they doing? Lu Yi did not let down his guard. He stepped out of the treasure house and stood in front of Qin Zong and the others. His long saber was slightly unsheathed half an inch. Qin Zong did not say anything. He just walked forward, patted Lu Ye's shoulder gently, and then turned into a cloud of fog. Xiao Jiaming followed, and then Su Qingwei, one crew member after another, came forward, as if to say their final goodbyes to Lu Yi. Lu Yi vaguely understood that these crew members did not want to see Haitang leave the ghost ship, so they were full of malice when he made that request. At the same time, their behavior of blocking the entrance of the treasure house was probably their final test for him. He had made up his mind to take Haitang away, and they were powerless to stop him. As a part of the ghost ship forever, they now only admired Lu Yi and envied Haitang. Not everyone could give up the treasure in the treasure house and take away an insignificant crew member. Deep in their hearts, they were probably looking forward to such a thing, looking forward to the day when another person would take one of them away. Human nature was always so complicated. The thick fog was just like the scene when Lu Yi fell into the ghost ship. It was invisible to the naked eye and undetectable by divine sense. A sinister voice unique to the mist sounded in Lu Ye's ears. Boy, you're the first one to make such a choice in so many years. You're not bad. As a reward for letting me watch a good show, I'll bestow you with a benefit. As the words fell, the thick fog in the surroundings poured into Lu Ye's body. Lu Yi was slightly surprised and hurriedly urged his spiritual power to protect himself. Although the fog said it was a benefit, Lu Yi did not dare to believe it. But strangely, no matter how he urged his spiritual power, he could not stop the fog from fusing with him. He quickly immersed his mind to check his talent tree, and found nothing unusual. Only then did he feel relieved. In a moment, the fog around him disappeared, and his vision became clear again. Lu Yi looked around, and found that he was now somewhere in the starry sky. In his field of vision, a tattered battleship was rushing into the distance. It was the ghost ship. Lu Yi frowned and finally bowed in the direction of the specter ship. "Thank you for your advice, senior." There was no response. There was no need for any response. The chances of meeting in the starry sky were very small. The ghost ship was drifting around, and Lu Yi estimated that he would probably never see it again in his life, nor would he have any dealings with it. Watching the ghost ship disappear, Lu Yi finally realized that he had left the ghost ship. Where was Haidang? Junior brother Lu. A divine sense came from afar, and at the same time, Haitang's voice came, revealing a strong sense of weakness. Lu Yi hurriedly rushed in that direction, and soon came to where Haitang was. When he looked carefully, he was shocked. "Senior sister Haitang, why are you like this?" Chapter 13:10. Haitang was obviously very weak at the moment. She had fallen into the ghost ship a few months earlier than Lu Yi, and her physical body had been trapped inside, her foundation constantly fading away. Strictly speaking, the Haitang that Lu Yi saw on the ghost ship was not her true body, but the manifestation of her soul avatar. That was why her real body had been trapped somewhere on the specter ship all this time. As the cycle of reincarnation continued, her soul avatar was separated from her true body, and Haitang could not control her physical body at all. Under such circumstances, she would naturally become weaker and weaker until she finally died. What surprised Lu Yi was not her current state, but her form. The Haitang he saw on the ghost ship looked like a normal human cultivator, but the Haitang in Lu Ye's field of vision was only the size of a palm. She looked no different from a human, but Lu Yi was sure that Haitang was definitely not a human. There was no such small human in this world. Of all the races that Lu Yi had seen, the smallest was undoubtedly the fairy race, but the fairy race was also the size of a baby, several sizes larger than Haitang in front of him. Haitang's pale face squeezed out a smile. "I've embarrassed myself in front of junior brother. I'm from the Minion clan of Mount Minion." Minion clan of Mount Minion? Lu Yi was stunned. "But on the ghost ship, senior sister, you clearly," Haitang said. "That's also one of the rules of the ghost ship. In fact, the crew you saw should be of different races. But on the ship, they were all in the form of normal humans." Only then did Lu Yi realize that he had been too short-sighted. However, this was the first time Lu Yi had seen such a small person, and he was curious for a moment. But now was not the time to be curious. Haitang's state was obviously not right. Lu Yi said with concern, "Senior sister, please recover first." Saying so, he stretched out a hand and gently lifted her up, placing her on his shoulder. Haitang nodded and sat down cross-legged. "Do you need a panacea?" Lu Yi asked. Haitang shook her head. "The panacea of the outside world is not suitable for my minion clan. I have my own recovery items, so junior brother need not worry." Lu Yi did not ask any more questions. Thinking about it, the panacea he used here was almost half the size of Haitang's head. How could she consume it? Hug and gnaw on it? That was too unsightly. While Haitang was recovering, Lu Yi began to investigate the surroundings to determine the direction of the 9 prefectures. The time spent on the specter ship was not long, about 10 days at most, so they should not have gone far. After observing the sun and finding Venus in the vast starry sky, Lu Yi determined the position of the 9 prefectures with a little deduction. Then he moved his body and stepped on the path back. This was the first time he had left the 9 prefectures and set foot in the starry sky. He had encountered so many things. Lu Yi sorted it out a little. It seemed that the first 3 months were peaceful. Other than searching for spiritual jades, he was exploring. After that, he encountered a large group of star beasts and killed them. When he was about to return, he met Feng Rumo. Then, he found the specter ship under his guidance. He had always thought that the starry sky around the 9 regions would be silent. After all, Yang Qing had said before that the 9 regions were relatively remote. But from the looks of it now, even though it was remote, it would still be lively sometimes. All kinds of wandering creatures, or creatures in the starry sky, might drift to the 9 prefectures at any time. Lu Yi controlled his speed within the range that he could control, and left a part of his mind to monitor the surroundings, to make sure that he would not crash into something while flying. Only then did Lu Yi immerse his mind and investigate his body. When he left the specter ship, a large amount of fog surged into his body. Although the talent tree did not have any abnormal reaction, and the fog said that this was a benefit, Lu Yi did not dare to be careless before he found out what this benefit was. His divine sense scanned every inch of his flesh and blood, but found nothing unusual. This was very strange. Since there was nothing unusual with his physical body, Lu Yi checked his divine see. Sure enough, he found something wrong. Originally, there were only traces of the soul-suppressing tower in his divine sea, but now, as far as the eye could see, there was a broken ship sailing in the sea. The shape of the broken ship was exactly the same as the specter ship. It was impossible for the specter ship to come to his divine sea. Lu Yi had already watched it leave. If that was the case, then what was the specter ship here? Lu Yi manifested his spirit avatar and flew onto the specter ship. In an instant, all kinds of mysteries lingered in his mind. Lu Yi closed his eyes and focused on comprehending. A moment later, he opened his eyes, which shone brightly. What the fog said at the end was right. This was indeed a great gift. The specter ship in the divine sea could be considered a brand of the specter ship's body. It had some of the specter ship's characteristics and rules. Of course, it was not as powerful as the real specter ship. And this thing could be used for the battle of the spirit. For Lu Yi, now that he had stepped into the starry sky, he would inevitably have to face some experts that he could not defeat. The chaos in the starry sky was not something the 9 prefectures could compare to. In the 9 prefectures, cultivators would not encounter an enemy whose cultivation level was much higher than theirs. Spirit Stream Realm cultivators and Cloud River Realm cultivators were both in the same cultivation level. Even if they advanced to the True Lake Realm and joined the prefecture guards of the various prefectures, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators would still restrict each other. True Lake Realm cultivators would not be bullied by the Divine Sea Realm cultivators. Even if they were bullied, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators on their side would quickly stand up for them. However, the starry sky was different. There were no restrictions. For example, Wuxia had directly forced his way into the 9 prefectures and wanted to enslave the land of the 9 prefectures. If Yangqing had not killed him, the cultivators of the 9 prefectures would have been reduced to slaves. Another example was Feng Rumo, whom Lu Yi had encountered previously. If the other party was a bloodthirsty person, Lu Yi would not have been able to survive. Wandering in the starry sky depended on one's strength and luck. No matter how strong one was, if one was unlucky and encountered an expert that he could not match, he could only admit that he was unlucky. One's cultivation level had to be raised bit by bit. There were not many tricks to this, but there were many strange methods to protect the spirit. The soul-suppressing pagoda in Lu Ye's spirit sea was one of them. When one's cultivation reached the constellation realm, one would have all kinds of wonderful methods to protect the spirit. Most of them relied on treasures, or cultivated special spirit secret techniques. However, for Lu Yi, the soul-suppressing pagoda was only a passive means of defense. It could only ensure the stability of Lu Ye's spirit, and it could not even prevent the invasion of the enemy's spirit. However, the specter ship's brand that he had obtained now was a means to take the initiative to attack. In the future, if he encountered an enemy that he could not match in terms of physical strength, or if a powerhouse started a battle of the spirit, the specter ship's brand could play a role. All kinds of mysteries about the ship lingered in his mind. Lu Yi shouted, "Everyone take your positions." As his voice fell, the originally tattered hull of the ship was restored to its intact appearance. Then on the deck, there were many illusory figures. Looking at the appearance of these figures, it was surprisingly Qin Zong and the other crew members. Outside the specter ship's treasury, the last thick fog that poured into Lu Ye's body was formed after Qin Zong and the others disappeared. Therefore, the specter ship here also had their brand, allowing Lu Yi to control it at will. In other words, if Lu Yi had a battle of the spirit with someone else, It would not be just a battle of the spirit. Lu Yi could control the Spectre ship and lead his crew to catch the enemy off guard. It was clearly a simple battle of the spirit, but Lu Yi had brought out a treasure ship. Just thinking about that scene was terrifying. Who knew what kind of expression the enemy would have when the time came? Now in the Spirit Sea, there was the soul-suppressing pagoda for defense and the Spectre ship for offense. There was both offense and defense. After driving the Spectre ship recklessly in the Spirit Sea for a while, Lu Yi withdrew from the Spirit Sea. Overall, he was very satisfied with the benefits bestowed by the fog. Moreover, from the fog's words, he was probably the only person who had received such benefits since ancient times. In the past, even if a cultivator passed the test of the Spectre ship, they basically took a treasure from the treasury and left. In comparison, the value of the Spectre ship in the Spirit Sea was not inferior to any of the treasures in the treasury. This thing could turn defeat into victory at a critical moment. What was the most important thing in a cultivator's cultivation? Staying alive was the most important thing. As long as one was alive, there was hope. In this way, his previous determination to take Haitang away was somewhat unintentional. To be honest, he was also very reluctant to give up the treasures in the treasury. The things in there were indeed precious and rare, but compared to his final choice, it was nothing. If he really only took one treasure out, Lu Yi would feel guilty from then on. He sped all the way. After a full month, Haitang's condition improved slightly. Although she was still weak, at least her condition had stabilized. Next, as long as she calmed down and cultivated, she would slowly recover. Haitang got up from Lu Ye's shoulder, looked at his profile, and bowed with a sincere expression. Junior brother Lu, thank you for taking me out of the sea of suffering. Haitang will always remember this kindness. Lu Yi smiled. Senior sister Haitang is too serious. In fact, I should thank you. If it weren't for your last effort, I wouldn't have been able to pass the test of the Spectre ship. If that was the case, you and I would probably be relying on each other on the Spectre ship, holding hands and crying. At the end of the 19th Reincarnation War, Lu Yi drove the Spectre ship to crash into the last enemy ship. He failed to kill it in one blow. When the enemy ship's array buzzed and shone brightly, Haitang controlled the attack array in time and gave the enemy ship a fatal blow. Only then could Lu Yi pass the test. From this point of view, Lu Yi was greatly indebted to Haitang. Hearing his interesting words, Haitang couldn't help but laugh. No matter what, Haitang's life was given to me by junior brother Lu. In the future, if junior brother needs anything, I will do everything. She said seriously. Lu Yi waved his hand. You saved me, and I saved you. We can be considered to have helped each other. It's not like we owe each other anything. Moreover, I chose to take senior sister away, but it's not completely without benefits. The benefits I get are no less than the treasures in the treasury. Chapter 13:11. Before leaving the Spectre ship, Haitang had heard what the fog had said and knew that Lu Yi had benefited from it. Now that Lu Yi mentioned it, she knew that it was true. However, she wasn't someone who wanted to know everything, so she didn't ask too many questions. She silently kept this kindness in her heart and prepared to repay it in the future. Changing the topic, she said, "But junior brother's mind is really sharp. How did you think of bringing me out?" If Lu Yi hadn't thought of this and succeeded in the end, Haitang wouldn't have thought of this. Lu Yi said, "Actually, senior sister should be thanking that fog." Haitang didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "It gave me some pointers." Lu Yi smiled. "When I entered the treasury, the mist said that I could take one of everything on the ship. At that time, I was dazzled by the myriad of treasures, so I didn't think too much about it. Indeed, I was prepared to take one of them, but at the last moment, I suddenly realized that there was something wrong with the mist's words." Haitang muttered to herself for a moment, then suddenly understood. It was talking about everything on the ship, not everything in the treasury. Exactly, Lu Yi nodded. Since that's the case, then senior sister Haitang must have been one of the choices. Now that I think about it, it must have secretly given me some pointers. That's why you thanked it when we left. When the Spectre ship left, Lu Yi had indeed said something like that. At the time, Haitang didn't know what Lu Yi was thanking it for. But if that was really the case, then the fog had indeed played a role in guiding them. Perhaps that was the case, or perhaps it had no choice but to do so. Regardless, Lu Yi had seen a flaw in the fog's words and changed his original plan. Overall, the Spectre ship's experience was like a strange game of rules in a specific environment. Not only did the intruders have to follow the rules, but even the ship's crew and the fog had to follow them. These rules weren't fatal, but they were extremely dangerous and left a chance for survival. It was quite mysterious. However, if one wanted to play such a game, they had to be prepared to gamble their lives. In any case, Lu Yi didn't want to do it again. Although he was confident that he could control the dragon warship well enough to deal with the 3 enemy ships, he didn't have a suitable method. Even if he could destroy the 3 ships, he still wouldn't be able to defeat the Moonjade realm. Senior Sister Haidang, where are you going? Lu Yi asked. Haitang's expression dimmed. I don't know either. Where is Mount Fangsuan? If it's not far, I can send you back. Lu Yi suggested. Haitang was still in a weak state, and it was not suitable for her to explore the starry sky in such a state. The two of them had formed a friendship on the ghost ship. Lu Yi felt that as long as the distance was not too far, it would not be a problem to send her back. Since Haitang was here, it meant that Fangsuan Mountain was not too far away from the 9 regions. In the future, the cultivators of the 2 realms would have some interactions, so there was no harm in negotiating in advance. Haidang shook her head. I don't know where it is. Lu Yi was stunned. How could he not know where his hometown was? Haidang explained. Mount Fangsuan is the same as the ghost ship. It is not fixed in a certain place in the starry sky. Instead, it follows a certain trajectory and drifts in the starry sky. A few months ago, Mount Fangsuan passed through the nearby starry sky. I came out to collect spirit jades, but I accidentally found the ghost ship and fell into it. Now that several months have passed, I don't know where Mount Fangsuan is heading. So that was the case. From this point of view, Mount Fangsuan should be the same type as the blood refining realm. They were both wandering realms. However, the level of Mount Fangsuan was obviously much higher than that of the blood refining realm. After all, it could give birth to a constellation like Haitang. Therefore, when the realm was drifting around, the cultivators of the realm could go out and collect spirit jades. Such a realm undoubtedly had its advantages. They never had to worry about the situation of running out of spirit jades in the airspace near their own realm. Because they were always moving, there was always a new airspace to explore. However, there were also disadvantages. Just like Haitang's current situation, once she had no contact with her own realm for too long, it was likely that she would not be able to find her way home. Lu Yi could not help but feel a little troubled. He could not ignore Haitang's current situation. However, if he were to bring her back to the 9 states, it would not be appropriate. To the outside world, the cultivators of the 9 states were now unified. They all called themselves cultivators of the 9 heavens, to avoid attracting the attention of the enemies of the previous 9 states. But then again, Haitang's temperament was still very good. When Lu Yi had just boarded the Spectre ship and was confused, she had already reminded him. After that, when he asked her for information, she did not hold back. At the last moment, it was her strong attack that broke the defense of the enemy ship. In this case, it did not seem to be a problem to bring her back to the 9 states. Thinking of this, Lu Yi said, If Senior Apprentice Sister has nowhere to go, why don't you follow me back to my realm? Sure. Haitang smiled and nodded. But I wonder what Junior Apprentice Brother's realm is called? Because we, the little human clan of Mount Fangsuan, are wandering around, we can be considered to have seen and learned a lot. Perhaps Junior Apprentice Brother's realm is also recorded in the ancient records of Mount Fangsuan. If so, I must have seen it in the ancient records. Then Senior Apprentice Sister must have not seen it before. Lu Yi smiled and said, Because the 9 heavens realm I came from has just been promoted to a large realm not long ago. Even I have only been promoted to a constellation mansion for half a year. I see. Haitang understood. If it was really a newly promoted large realm, Mount Fangsuan would definitely not have records of it. There were so many realms in the starry sky. No matter how knowledgeable Mount Fangsuan was, It was impossible for them to record every single realm. Generally, those that were recorded were at least large realms. She was secretly shocked because if Lu Yi did not mention it, she would not have realized that Lu Yi had only been promoted to a constellation mansion for half a year. She could see that Lu Ye's cultivation base was at the early stage of a constellation mansion, but the density of his spiritual power was not something a newly promoted constellation mansion could possess. It would take at least 10 to 20 years of accumulation. It seemed that this junior apprentice brother Lu Ye's talent was extraordinary. Moreover, his various performances on the Spectre ship were also somewhat unfathomable. Until now, Haitang had not figured out how he solved the problem of spiritual power endurance. As expected, one could not underestimate any cultivator in the starry sky. The Nine Heavens realm, as a newly promoted large realm, had given birth to such a person. In the future, he would definitely be extraordinary. They continued to fly forward. Their speed was not considered fast, mainly because Lu Yi still had to shoulder the mission of exploration, so he had to make some records of the celestial bodies he saw. The originally boring journey in the starry sky became less boring with the addition of Haitang. The two of them casually chatted from time to time, which could also pass the time. However, Haitang often needed to recover, so Lu Yi was still in a state of silence most of the time. After about half a month, there was suddenly a movement from the battlefield imprint. Lu Yi focused and checked, and found that it was a message from Little Nine. "Lu Yi, you're still alive?" Lu Ye's face darkened, and he replied, "Of course I'm still alive." This Little Nine was getting more and more outrageous. "You've got guts." None of the cultivators who explore the starry sky dared to go too far. Generally, they would travel within half a year, and you've gone the furthest. After traveling for more than half a year, it was impossible to get in touch with the 9 regions in time. Little Nine, as the heaven's secret of the 9 regions, could be said to be able to sense the imprint of the cultivators of the 9 regions at any time. Naturally, it could determine the approximate location of those cultivators who had left. Lu Ye's side was different. As early as 2 months ago, he had left its sensing range. But to be honest, this was not his original intention. He had already planned to return, but in the end he met Feng Rumo, who flew with him for a while. After that, he went to find the ghost ship, and was taken by the ghost ship for a while. As a result, they flew further and further away. "It's good that you're alive, it's good that you're alive. Go home early," Little Nine exhorted. Lu Yi suddenly had a strange feeling, like a naughty child playing outside and forgetting the time to go home. As a result, he was urged by his parents. But then again, wandering in this vast starry sky, where the place was vast and boundless, if there was no concern in the heart, it would really be empty. As soon as he ended the communication with Little Nine, Jian Guhong sent another message, asking about his recent situation. Obviously, Jian Guhong had been checking the situation of his battlefield imprint. Previously, Lu Yi had run too far, so Jian Guhong could not contact him. Now that he had just entered the range of contact, Jian Guhong noticed it. Lu Yi spent some time telling Jian Guhong about his experiences on this trip. Whether it was Feng Rumo or the ghost ship, for the cultivators of the 9 regions, they had never come into contact with them. They might have a chance to encounter them in the future, so Lu Yi naturally would not hide such important information. As for the previous encounter with the angler fish, Lu Yi had already sent a message to Jian Guhong. Presumably, in the future, when the cultivators of the 9 regions enter the starry sky, they would be more vigilant. Immediately, Lu Yi mentioned Haitang and asked for Jian Guhong's opinion. Jian Guhong naturally did not know about the little humans of Mount Fengxuan, but as the first guardian of the 9 regions, he paid attention to something else that interested him. "You're saying that this fellow Taoist named Haitang comes from Mount Fengxuan and is especially knowledgeable?" Probably. According to her, Mount Fengxuan is like the ghost ship, wandering everywhere. The cultivators of Mount Fengxuan will expand their horizons as the world moves, so naturally, they have extraordinary experience. Then we must invite this fellow Taoist Haitang back. Lu Yi immediately understood his plan. Senior apprentice brother wants to invite her to spread the various common knowledge of the starry sky to us 9 regions? This is a rare opportunity. Compared to our own exploration, the information that Mount Fengsuan has is much more comprehensive. We won't ask her about any secrets, and we'll only ask her about things that everyone knows but we don't. Naturally, we won't make things difficult for her. Alright, I've already invited her before. Senior apprentice sister Haitang has nowhere to go now, so she has agreed to return to the 9 regions with me. Chapter 13:12. Originally, Lu Yi was still a little hesitant about his decision to invite Haitang to 9 regions, but after hearing Jian Guhong's words, he immediately understood that his decision was right. When he was with Feng Rumo before, although he heard some information about the starry sky from Feng Rumo, the information was not systematic and very scattered, mainly because Feng Rumo said what he thought. But if he could get Haitang to help popularize it, it would certainly be of great benefit to 9 regions cultivators when they entered the starry sky in the future. When he explained this matter to Haitang, Haitang naturally agreed. She was still very happy to be able to help Lu Yi. Several days passed. The battlefield imprint once again sent a message. Lu Yi checked and found that it was Little Nine. What is it? Little Nine's tone was somewhat hesitant. There is one thing. I don't know if I should tell you, but I don't want to tell you. It's so difficult. Lu Yi was speechless. Since you don't want to tell me, why did you bring it up? Little Nine said. But if I don't tell you, you will blame me when you find out in the future. What can I blame you for? Lu Yi was curious. What is it? If you don't tell me, I will blame you right now. Speaking halfway was still very annoying. If Little Nine didn't mention it, it would be fine. But since he mentioned it, it must be something related to him. So he had to know. Then I'll tell you, Little Nine hurriedly said. Although he had intelligence, his temperament was still equivalent to a child. In the entire 9 regions, he could only chat with Lu Yi from time to time. The others simply didn't know his specific existence. Hearing Lu Yi say so, how could he dare to hide anything? There is a woman called Thought Moon Immortal who has gone missing. Lu Ye's figure paused, his brows furrowed. Missing? What do you mean? He just disappeared. He suddenly disappeared. Little Nine replied. He knew that Lu Yi and Thought Moon Immortal had a good relationship. When Lu Yi first entered the State Guard, he received a lot of care from Thought Moon Immortal. If it was a 9 regions cultivator that Lu Yi was not familiar with, or did not know, he would be too lazy to tell Lu Yi this matter. Lu Yi realized that something was wrong. Jian Guhong still needed to check the status of the battlefield imprints to confirm the recent situation of the Constellation Realm cultivators who had left the 9 states. For example, Lu Yi had left the range of contact, and Jian Guhong had been unable to contact him. However, Little Nine was different. As the heavenly secrets of the 9 prefectures, it could sense the location of the Constellation Realm cultivators at any time. If it said they were missing, then the matter was not so simple. Is it beyond the range of your senses? Lu Yi asked. That's not it. Although her original location wasn't far from the edge of my detection range, I would have been able to detect her if she had gradually exceeded my detection range. However, the truth is that I had suddenly lost the detection of her battlefield imprint. As expected, something had happened. Lu Yi was silent for a moment before asking, is he dead or alive? I don't know. I can't sense the battlefield imprint, so I can't determine if he's dead or alive. Within the range of the heavenly secrets of the 9 prefectures, if a cultivator died, the imprint would shatter. Others could also determine their death through this method, but it was not possible outside the range of the heavenly secrets. Outside the range, even if the cultivator died, the imprint would only be in a state of being unable to contact and would not shatter. This was also the reason why Little Nine didn't want to tell Lu Yi about this. If the Thought Moon Immortal was really dead, then the place where she disappeared would definitely be extremely dangerous. If it didn't tell Lu Yi, then Lu Yi wouldn't investigate. But if it told Lu Yi, then Lu Yi would definitely not ignore it. When did it happen? Lu Yi asked again. 2 hours ago. You guide me, Lu Yi said as he immediately turned around and flew away. Little Nine sighed. He knew that things would develop like this. In desperation, he could only guide Lu Yi. Not to mention that Thought Moon Immortal had taken care of Lu Yi a lot. Even if Lu Yi really didn't know about the 9 prefectures, under the premise that they might be in danger, Lu Yi would still investigate. Since it was within the range of the heavenly secrets of the 9 prefectures, then what was the danger and how dangerous it was, he must figure it out. This was his responsibility as the first generation of 9 prefectures. Haidang, who was sitting on Lu Ye's shoulder to recover, slowly opened her eyes. Lu Yi transmitted his voice. Senior sister Haitang, I won't return to this realm for the time being. A senior sister is missing. I have to investigate. Haitang understood and nodded. Then you have to be careful. She continued to speed up her recovery to ensure that if Lu Yi encountered any danger, she could help him in time. The location where Thought Moon Immortal disappeared was not far from Lu Yi, only a month's journey away. This was also the reason why Little Nine chose to send a message to Lu Yi, because out of all the 9 regions' constellations, only Lu Yi was the closest to here. Nowadays, although there were many 9 prefectures, when they entered the starry sky outside the 9 prefectures, they were like fish pouring into the sea, extremely scattered. Usually, unless they traveled together like the sect leader and Yun Shuechu, it was difficult for the native cultivators of 9 prefectures to meet each other in the starry sky. A month later, following the guidance of Little Nine, Lu Yi arrived at the location where Thought Moon Immortal disappeared. He did not show up rashly, but hid far away and quietly investigated. But as far as the eye could see, there was nothing in this starry sky. Not to mention stars, there was not even a meteorite. What kind of danger could there be in such a place that would cause Thought Moon Immortal to suddenly disappear? Just when Lu Yi was puzzled and was about to investigate more carefully, Haiding suddenly let out a soft cry and flew out from Lu Ye's shoulder. Seeing this, Lu Yi followed closely. Not long after, Haiding flew to a position and stood still. She looked around and immediately raised her hand to form a seal. A strange light suddenly flashed from her eyes. After staring for a while, a smile bloomed on her face and she said happily, "Junior brother Lu, I found the aura of home." The aura of home? Haitang's little head kept nodding. Fengsuan Mountain, it stayed here for a while. Lu Yi looked carefully, but even with the insight spirit pattern, he did not find anything strange in the vicinity. He immediately understood that this should be a secret technique unique to the Miniman clan, and only the Miniman clan could perform it. She saw the aura of home. His heart thumped. Thought Moon Immortal disappeared from this position a month ago. Haiding said that Fengsuan Mountain had stayed in this position for a while. Things couldn't be so coincidental, right? But if there was no other possibility, then this was the only possibility. Can you find it? Lu Yi asked hurriedly. Haiding nodded. It should be possible. They should have sensed that I was missing, so they stayed here for a while to wait for me, and left some aura. But I did not show up in the end, so Fengsuan Mountain could only continue forward. But there should be some traces left along the way. I can find them. As she said this, she continued to look around and finally confirmed a direction. This way. As she spoke, she landed back on Lu Ye's shoulder. Lu Yi moved and pounced in that direction. Although he was worried about the Moon Immortal's safety, Lu Yi could not help but be curious. Your Fengsuan Mountain can stop at any time? It was an entire realm, not a spirit boat. How could it stop at any time? Take the blood refining realm for example. If it were not for the power of the many heavenly secrets pillars, it would not have stopped at the side of the 9 provinces. That required a lot of pushing force. And in order to stop the blood refining realm, the entire blood refining realm had exhausted a lot of its resources. Haiding smiled. Fengsuan Mountain might be a little different from what you think, junior brother. You'll know when you see it. Haitang had originally thought that she would never be able to return to her hometown, but she did not expect to have such an unexpected discovery. Her mood was obviously good, but immediately after she realized something. Junior brother Lu, that senior sister of yours went missing in that place? Lu Yi nodded. That's right. Haitang immediately understood. In that case, she might have entered Fengsuan Mountain. Lu Yi said, if so, will there be any danger? Although Haitang's temperament was not bad, It was impossible to determine what kind of character the Minimen clan had. If they were hostile to the human race, then the Moon Immortal would not have a good ending if she fell into their trap. Haidang said, if she really entered Fengsuan Mountain, junior brother need not be too worried. Although our Minimen clan does not welcome other races into our realm, there will occasionally be some cultivators who intrude. Generally speaking, the cultivators who intrude will not be in danger of losing their lives, but what? Lu Yi knew that generally, when others said but, it would not be pleasant to hear. But they have to serve 100 years of hard labor before they can regain their freedom. Haidang glanced at Lu Yi with some embarrassment. This is a rule passed down from Fengsuan Mountain since ancient times. Most of the cultivators in the starry sky know about this rule, so generally, after seeing Fengsuan Mountain, they will not trespass. How could the cultivators of 9 regions know about the rules of the starry sky? In any case, knowing that the Moon Immortal's life would not be in danger, Lu Yi felt a little relieved. What he was most worried about was that the Moon Immortal had met with an accident. Now it seemed that the Moon Immortal had most likely accidentally intruded into Fengsuan Mountain and was left behind. As for why Fengsuan Mountain would stay in this position, since ancient times, Fengsuan Mountain had always drifted around. The cultivators of Fengsuan Mountain could wander around the realm and go out to collect spirit jades, but they would not go too far. Haidang also did not go too far before, but she encountered the Spectre ship. Although she had seen many records of the Spectre ship in the ancient books, she did not think too much about it at that time. Out of curiosity, she boarded the Spectre ship and ended up trapped inside. If Lu Yi had not brought her out in the end, she would have most likely met with disaster. This was a result of her lack of experience in exploring the starry sky. Even if she had read many ancient books and knew about all kinds of strange things in the starry sky, if she was not careful enough, there would still be carelessness. It was also related to the Spectre ship being too deceptive. It was a broken ship. Lu Yi had carefully inspected it and determined that there was no danger before boarding it. In the end, it was easy to get in, but when he wanted to leave, he could not. End of chapter. Chapter 1313. Haidang was still in the constellation tier, after all. Although there were many elites in Mount Fengsuan, a constellation tier elite was not someone that could be abandoned so easily. Moreover, there were some other reasons why Mount Fengsuan could not abandon her so easily. Sensing that she had not returned, Mount Fengsuan had stopped at this location. Perhaps there were still elites from Mount Fengsuan searching everywhere for her, but they could not find her in the end. Thus, missing Moon Immortal was unlucky. Lu Yi could not be sure exactly how the matter had developed, but he thought that it should be the process. Now it was very likely that missing Moon Immortal was trapped in Mount Fengsuan, so he had to go over and take a look. However, he soon realized a problem. Senior sister Haidang, since your Mount Fengsuan has such a rule, then if I go in, Haidang smiled. That rule is only applicable to intruders. You're a guest invited by me, so it's naturally not applicable. Junior brother, you don't have to worry. If that senior sister of yours is really at Mount Fengsuan, I'll ask Master to mediate for you to bring her out after I return. Thank you, senior sister, Haidang said. You saved my life and brought me out of the sea of bitterness. I do not know how to repay you. I am very happy to be able to help you. Junior brother, you do not have to be so courteous with me. Lu Yi did not say anything else. Haidang also seriously used the secret technique of the dwarf tribe, searching for traces of aura that others could not see. Originally, he had planned to bring Haidang back to the 9 states and ask her for some information about the universe. Now, it seemed that this plan had been ruined. This was something that could not be helped. Plans were always inferior to changes. After receiving Little Nine's message, Lu Yi had rushed to the location where missing Moon Immortal had disappeared. In other words, a month ago, Mount Fengsuan should still be in that location, so it should not have gone far at this moment. However, chasing after a drifting domain in the universe was actually not an easy task, especially when Haidang had to stop from time to time to determine the direction that Mount Fengsuan had moved. Sometimes she even ran in the wrong direction, which was a bit of a waste of time. After a full 2 months, Haiteng said excitedly, "It should not be far. These traces are very clear. We should be able to reach home in a few days." Sure enough, a few days later, something that looked like a small mountain suddenly appeared in Lu Ye's field of vision. He didn't pay much attention to it at first. After all, there were all kinds of meteors and floating continents in the cosmos. He had seen all kinds of strange objects before. But what he didn't expect was that when Haiteng saw the mountain-like star, she actually cheered. "I finally found it." Lu Yi was dumbfounded. "This is Mount Fangsuan?" "Yeah." Haiteng nodded heavily. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. He wanted to ask her if she had made a mistake, but on second thought, it was useless to ask. Haiteng was from the dwarf clan. There was no reason for her to make a mistake about her own domain. But could this be considered a domain? The small mountain that entered his field of vision wasn't that big. It couldn't be said that it could be seen everywhere in the starry sky, but it wasn't difficult to spot. This was just a meteorite that was in the shape of a small mountain. Although there were many mountain peaks, the tallest one was only a few 100 feet high. Even if the dwarfs were really small, living in such a place, wouldn't it be crowded? Moreover, Lu Yi couldn't sense any living aura from it. Haiteng seemed to have seen his confusion, so she explained, "Mount Fangsuan is mysterious and unpredictable. It has the innate ability to camouflage and confuse people, so it's impossible to see anything from the outside." What she meant was that there was a world inside Mount Fangsuan. Lu Yi smiled and said, "Then I'll have to take a good look." But very soon Lu Yi saw something else. "Your Mount Fangsuan is incomplete?" On one side of the small mountain, there were obvious signs of fracture. It was unknown how it had been caused. Haiteng nodded. "Mount Fangsuan is indeed incomplete. Many years ago, it was split into 3 parts. We belong to the eastern part of Mount Fangsuan, and there are also the southern and western parts. In the future, if junior brother comes across the other 2 parts of Mount Fangsuan in the starry sky, don't just barge in recklessly." Lu Yi nodded and said, "I understand." As they spoke, the 2 of them continued to approach Mount Fangsuan. Very soon, they reached the periphery of the small mountain. Haiteng said, "Junior brother, don't resist." As she said this, she activated her spiritual power and wrapped it around Lu Yi. Then he crashed headfirst into the small mountain ahead. Just as he was about to crash into the mountain, Lu Yi suddenly had the illusion that he had barged into a layer of thin film. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. When he looked up, he was astonished. This was because what he saw was a huge sun hanging in the sky. It had appeared so abruptly, without any warning at all. Lu Yi immediately understood that Mount Fangsuan looked one way from the outside, and another way inside. As expected, there was another world inside. An extremely powerful divine sense suddenly swept over, and Lu Ye's body tensed up. This divine sense was so strong that he had only felt it from a few people. Uxian Yangqing and Feng Rumo. Sunshine Realm. Clearly, because Haiteng had brought him into Mount Fangsuan, they had attracted the attention of the Sunshine Realm cultivators guarding the border. In the blink of an eye, the divine sense disappeared. It had undoubtedly identified Haiteng's identity. Lu Yi calmed himself down and continued to observe the interior of Mount Fangsuan. The light of the sun was covered by the clouds. At this moment, he and Haiteng were rapidly descending. He took a light breath and felt the air that he had not felt in a long time. After passing through the clouds, the ground below was imprinted into his vision. It was vast and continuous, with many undulating mountain ranges. It was as if long dragons were lying on the ground. This was what a realm should look like. "Junior brother, how is the interior of Mount Fangsuan?" Haiteng asked with a smile. "The atmosphere is extraordinary." Lu Yi could feel that Mount Fangsuan was much higher level than the 9 provinces. This was definitely a top-level realm. From the outside, he could see the full appearance of Mount Fangsuan at a glance. However, after entering, even if he fully spread out his divine sense, he could only detect a small area of Mount Fangsuan. Suddenly, he realized that something was not right. He turned to look at Haiteng and was dumbfounded. "Senior sister Haiteng, you have grown bigger." At this moment, Haiteng was no longer that palm-sized little person. Instead, She was the same as when he saw her on the Spectre ship. She had a normal human physique. Haiteng pursed her lips and smiled. It's not that I've grown bigger, it's that you've become smaller. This is the law of Mount Fengsuan. It's said that the complete Mount Fengsuan is a starry sky supreme treasure. Although it's now divided into 3 parts, the law of Mount Fengsuan is still operating. All cultivators who enter this place will become smaller. Lu Yi did not notice it at all. He circulated his spiritual power slightly, and there was no hindrance. He then looked at his storage ring and storage space. They were not affected at all. Even the mountain pan saber was still the size that was suitable for him. How mysterious was such a law? Haiteng continued. I'll bring you back to the peak first to see Master. Then, I'll think of a way to find out about that senior sister of yours. If she's really trapped here, I'll ask Master to help rescue her and reunite with you. She had arranged everything properly. Naturally, Lu Yi had no problems. As he flew forward, Lu Yi discovered that there was nothing in Mount Fengsuan. Moreover, there didn't seem to be a lot of people in Mount Fengsuan. At the very least, it wasn't like the 9 provinces where there were humans everywhere. All the humans were gathered around the spiritual mountains. Some of the spiritual mountains had more humans, while others had fewer humans. After asking about this, Haiteng didn't hide anything. Junior Marshall Brother is right. Our little human race does use spirit mountains as our foundation. A spirit mountain is equivalent to a sect of your human race. Within Mount Fengsuan, there are 1,000 spirit mountains, which means there are 1,000 sections. Although this was not a small number, it paled in comparison to the land of the 9 provinces. If all the sects in the land of the 9 provinces were added together, there would be more than 10,000 of them. This was undoubtedly related to the population of the humans. Among the 1,000 spiritual mountains, there were 3 that were the most powerful. They were the Misty Peak, the Cloud Sea Peak, and the Immortal Spirit Peak. All of them had sunshine cultivators. Previously, when Haiteng brought Lu Yi into Mount Fengsuan, the spiritual will that swept over them belonged to the Cloud Sea Peak's peak lord, Chen Xianhai. Recently, he had been on duty to protect this realm. The spiritual mountain that Haiteng came from was one of the 3 great spiritual mountains, the Immortal Spirit Peak. Her master was the Immortal Spirit Peak's peak lord Su Yuqing. She was also one of the only 3 sunshine cultivators in Mount Fengsuan. If not for this layer of relationship, Mount Fengsuan would not have stopped to wait for Haiteng after discovering that she had gone missing. If it were a constellation cultivator without a strong backer who had gone missing, Mount Fengsuan would at most send out people to search for her. It could be seen that Haiteng's master was quite fond of her. The territory of the entire Fengsuan mountain wasn't too vast. It was only about 3 out of the 9 prefectures. However, one had to know that the Fengsuan mountain here was only a part of it. The complete Fengsuan mountain was definitely not inferior to the 9 prefectures in terms of size. A constellation cultivator's flying speed was very fast. Even if they entered the realm from the wrong place, it took them less than an hour to reach the Immortal Spirit Peak. From the outside of Mount Fengsuan, Lu Yi saw that the tallest peak was only a few hundred feet tall. However, it was different inside. The Immortal Spirit Peak was several thousand feet tall. Spiritual energy was abundant in the spiritual mountain. Beside the spiritual mountain, there were mountain ranges. This area of 100,000 miles could be considered the territory of the Immortal Spirit Peak. Haiteng led Lu Yi to a valley below the Immortal Spirit Peak and arranged for him to stay in the guest hall. She said apologetically, "Junior brother Lu, Master has some rules here. Without her permission, outsiders are not allowed to step into the Immortal Spirit Peak. Please wait here first. I will go and meet Master now and report to her about your senior sister. Then I will have to trouble senior sister Haiteng." After Haiteng left, Lu Yi sat quietly in the guest hall and waited. After entering Mount Fengsuan, he tried to check the battlefield imprint. However, he was already out of the range of the land of the 9 provinces, so he could not find anything useful. He also thought of using his spiritual sense to search, but he was after all a guest. It would be inappropriate for him to do so. He could only leave this matter to Haiteng. Hopefully, there will be a good result. End of chapter. Chapter 13-14. While they waited, people peeked into the hall from time to time. They didn't seem to have any ill intentions. They were just curious. After all, it was rare for guests to appear in a place like Fengshan Mountain. Most of the time, it was some foreign cultivator who accidentally trespassed and was stopped by the sunshine cultivators guarding the border. Furthermore, Haitang's status in the immortal spiritual peak wasn't low. The cultivators who came from the same peak as her wanted to know what kind of guest Haitang brought back. In the end, they were greatly disappointed. They quickly lost interest and dispersed. In the face of these curious gazes, Lu Yi could only pretend that he didn't see them and wait quietly. Haitang went straight to the immortal spiritual peak and greeted her master, Su Yuqing, in the hall. A sunshine cultivator's spiritual sense was extremely powerful. When Haitang brought Lu Yi into Fengshan Mountain, she had already sensed it. When Haitang went missing, she personally went out to investigate and found traces of the ghost ship. She knew that her most outstanding disciple had accidentally entered the ghost ship. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been unable to find her. However, even if she was a sunshine cultivator, she didn't dare to enter the ghost ship to save Lu Yi. Once she entered, she would have to abide by the ghost ship's rules. She wouldn't be able to use the advantage of being a sunshine cultivator. If that happened, not only would she fail to save Lu Yi, but she would also lose her life. In her heartache, she could only give up. She thought that she would never see her disciple again. Who would have thought that she would come back on her own, and even brought a human man with her? Su Yuqing was still doubtful. Could it be that my guess was wrong? My disciple didn't fall into the ghost ship? But if that's the case, why can't I find her? In the hall, Haitang's eyes were red. Her narrow escape from the ghost ship had left her with lingering fear. When she was with Lu Yi, she could still suppress her emotions. However, after seeing her most respected master, she could no longer suppress her emotions. She was like a child who was bullied outside and felt wronged when she saw her parents. However, she was a constellation cultivator and wouldn't cry like a child. Seeing her like this, Su Yuqing sighed. She was about to scold her, but now she couldn't be harsh. She raised her hand and said, "Get up." A gentle force lifted Haitang up. "Where did you go? Why couldn't I find you?" Su Yuqing asked. She was really curious. Logically speaking, with her Sunshine Realm spiritual sense, she should be able to find Haitang easily, as long as she didn't run too far away. However, she didn't find anything during her previous search. Now that she found traces of the ghost ship, it was only natural for her to come to such a conclusion. Haitang lowered her head. "Your disciple is unfilial and has made you worry. Your disciple went out to collect spiritual jades and ended up entering the specter ship by mistake and got trapped." Su Yuqing was surprised. "Are you really trapped on the ghost ship?" It seemed that her deduction was right. She knew her disciple's background very well. Although he wasn't bad, he definitely didn't have the ability to escape from Spectre ship. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given up waiting back then. It was precisely because she concluded that her disciple would definitely die if he were to fall into Spectre's ship that Mount Fengshan once again set sail and left. This disciple's luck is pretty good. I was saved by someone else and was able to escape. It was Junior Marshal Brother Liu who came back with this disciple. Su Yuqing's interest was piqued. At her level of cultivation, there were very few things in the world that could interest her. But since it was related to Spectre ship, she had to find out more about it. Especially since that Junior Marshal Brother Liu could save someone from Spectre ship. What kind of ability is that? She had secretly checked Liu Ye's cultivation before, and knew that he was only in the early constellation realm. It was strange that someone in the early constellation realm could do something that even she, a sunshine cultivator, couldn't do. He thought to himself, could it be that there was something wrong with his investigation? She extended her spiritual sense to the guest hall in the valley where Lu Yi was. After checking carefully, she confirmed that he was only in the early constellation realm. In the guest hall, Lu Yi's body tensed up. He felt a sunshine cultivator's spiritual sense spying on him. However, the spying wasn't hidden. It was an open investigation. Haitang's master was probably spying on him. It was a good thing that this kind of observation came and went quickly. The other party's actions were normal. Lu Yi didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. After all, he was a guest. In the main hall of the Immortal Spirit Mountain, Haitang recounted her experience on Spectre ship. Originally, she wanted to keep it short, but under Su Yuqing's instructions, she had no choice but to recount everything in detail. When she heard that junior martial brother Lu had gone through 19 reincarnations and finally passed the Spectre ship's test, even someone like Su Yuqing couldn't help but be shocked. Although she had never been to Spectre ship, she knew a little about it. Coupled with her disciple's explanation, she naturally understood that the biggest problem a cultivator had to face when they were trapped in Spectre ship was the problem of their spiritual power reserves. His disciple had only lasted 7 cycles of reincarnation before his spiritual energy was completely depleted, and he could no longer continue. That junior martial brother Lu had actually lasted 19 reincarnations. Not only was his spiritual power not depleted, his strength wasn't affected at all. How terrifying was his spiritual power reserves? It was impossible for a constellation mansion to have such a spiritual power reserve in the early stages. He must have a way to quickly recover his spiritual power. Su Yuqing was even more shocked when she heard that Lu Yi had driven Spectre ship to defeat 3 constellations mansion masters on his own, and unleashed a golden beast that swallowed a moon jade realm master and several constellations. She carefully asked Haitang about the appearance and aura of that golden beast. Haitang naturally told her everything she knew. Seeing Su Yuqing's thoughtful expression, Haitang cautiously said, "Master, from what I've seen, that golden beast shouldn't be junior martial brother Lu's own ability. It might be a secret technique sealed in his weapon by an expert." Su Yuqing nodded. "Of course I know it's a sealing technique. But this kind of technique, I'm not as good as it." Haitang was surprised. "Master can't do this?" Su Yuqing sighed. "A normal sealing technique is naturally not a problem, but Spectre ship's internal rules are special. Unless there's a powerful expert, the sealing technique won't be able to exert its corresponding power on Spectre ship. This little guy surnamed Lu has an expert behind him. And it was definitely an expert who was more powerful than her." Haitang couldn't help but be puzzled. As far as she knew, the 9 Heavens realm where junior martial brother Lu came from was only a newly promoted large-sized realm. There were only a bunch of early-stage constellation mansion masters in the realm. There wasn't even a moon jade realm. So where did this expert come from? Continue. Su Yuqing's words interrupted Haitang's thoughts. "He passed Spectre ship's test, so he can naturally leave." "How did you leave?" Haitang said, "It was junior apprentice brother Lu who brought me out." She then talked about the treasures in the treasury and Lu Ye's final choice. When she learned that Lu Yi was willing to give up the Great Yin Spirit Pearl, worth 1,000,000 spirit jades to bring Haitang out of Spectre ship, Su Yuqing couldn't help but be dazed. To a Sunshine Realm cultivator like her, 1,000,000 spirit jades were naturally nothing. However, to an early-stage constellation mansion master, this was a huge fortune. Moreover, the Great Yin Spirit Pearl's value could not be measured by the number of spirit jades. This thing was extremely helpful for cultivation, and was a treasure that could only be found by chance. In this world, there was actually such a person with such noble character? I also didn't expect junior martial brother Lu to make such a choice in the end. I had already accepted my fate when I failed to pass Spectre ship's test. I thought I would never be able to escape in this life, and would soon die on that ship. Who knew that junior martial brother Lu would choose me in the end? After arguing with the fog in the treasury, he brought me out. However, because of this, junior martial brother Lu didn't manage to take any treasures out of the treasury. Su Yuqing looked at her disciple with a strange expression. "Did he take a fancy to you? Otherwise, why would he make such a choice when they met by chance? Any rational cultivator in such an environment would choose the Great Yin Spirit Pearl, right?" Haitang shook her head. "It's not like that, master. I've been with junior martial brother Lu for many days, and I can confirm that he's a person with good character. The reason why he wanted to save me was that I gave him some help in the beginning. In the end, it was also because of me that he was able to defeat the third warship. Junior martial brother Lu is a person who knows how to repay kindness." Su Yuqing knew that although her disciple was inexperienced in the world, she was not stupid. She still had a good eye for people. Since she said so, then she was right. He did not make a choice because of her beauty, but because he really wanted to save her. For a moment, she had a good impression of that kid surnamed Lu. Nowadays, there were fewer and fewer juniors with such a character. Originally, if Haitang had simply brought a friend back, she would not have bothered. Now that she knew the twists and turns in this matter, Su Yuqing felt that it was necessary for her to meet him. No matter what, her disciple had survived because of him, so she should give him some practical benefits. It could be considered that she had fulfilled a part of karma. However, before she could say anything, Haitang said, "Master, Junior Martial Brother Lu came with me to Mount Fengsuan this time because he has a request." "What is it?" Haitang said. 3 months ago, Junior Martial Brother Lu received news that one of his senior martial sisters went missing. Later, when we went to investigate, we happened to discover the aura of Mount Fengsuan. It was because of this that I was able to find the way back. Junior Martial Brother Lu suspects that his senior martial sister might have mistakenly entered Mount Fengsuan and is trapped here. Therefore, I would like to ask Master to help me find out if she can be reunited with Junior Martial Brother Lu. Chapter 13-15. 3 months ago. Su Yuqing pondered for a moment. "I don't know about this. Recently, your martial uncle Chen Xianhai has been in charge. If there were any intruders, he was the one who captured them. Let me ask him." Since she was the senior sister of her disciple's savior, she wasn't an outsider. If she was really trapped in Fengsuan Mountain, it wouldn't matter if she was released. As she spoke, she flicked her finger. An array of spiritual light shot out. "After talking so much, I forgot to ask. What's the name of that Lu kid, and where is he from?" Su Yuqing asked. She was already prepared to meet Lu Yi, so she naturally had to find out more about his background. Such a junior was upright and noble in character. Not only did he have extraordinary means, but he also had an expert behind him. Given time, he would definitely become a capable person. As the master, Su Yuqing was happy to see her disciple befriend such a person. "His name is Lu Yi. He's from the Nine Heavens realm." Lu Yi from the Nine Heavens realm. Su Yuqing nodded slightly. Just as she was thinking about which realm the Nine Heavens realm was, she suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu. Then her expression changed. "Lu Yi from the Nine Heavens realm?" Haitang blinked. She didn't know why her master had such a big reaction, but she still corrected her master. "Master, it's Lu Yi, not Lu Yi." Su Yuqing acted as if she didn't hear anything. Her divine sense surged out again. At the same time, in the guest hall of the valley, Lu Yi frowned. "Why is there no end to this? Just now, a Sunshine Realm cultivator's divine sense came to check on me, and now there's another one. Is she afraid that I'm a thief or something?" What he didn't know was that Su Yuqing's previous check was out of consideration. Now she was checking on him for another reason. After a while, the feeling of being checked disappeared. In the main hall of the Immortal Spirit Mountain, Su Yuqing was almost certain that the Lu Yi from the Nine Heavens realm that her disciple brought back was the junior she knew, because their cultivations matched. Speaking of which, it was a coincidence that she knew the name Lu Yi from the realm of Nine Heavens. More than half a year ago, the Fengsuan Mountain passed by a top-level realm. She was acquainted with a powerhouse in that realm, so she went to disturb him for a few days. While chatting with that powerhouse, he told her something interesting. It was the battle for the Spirit Sea at the Reincarnation Tree. It was said that in the battle for the Divine Sea, an 8th Order Divine Sea Realm Master from the Nine Heavens world swept through the blood race by himself, killing all the Divine Sea Realm juniors who participated in the battle. Not only that, even the insect race suffered a calamity at his hands. Although he didn't completely wipe them out, it was close. After that, this 8th Order Divine Sea Realm Junior, with a cultivation weaker than everyone else's, suppressed all the top geniuses of the Stone Clan, and killed a genius from the Yellow Dragon Realm. Even the rising stars of the Yellow Dragon Realm didn't dare to face him head-on. And in the end, he won first place, shocking everyone. And that junior was Lu Yi from the realm of Nine Heavens. Now the blood race and the insect race had jointly issued a bounty in the starry sky. Anyone who could kill Wuxia from the realm of 9 heavens could take his head and receive a large reward from the two races. The reward was so generous that even Sunshine Realm cultivators would be tempted. It could be said that the blood race and the insect race had suffered a great loss in the battle for the Divine Sea because of Wuxia. Now they were willing to pay any price to take revenge. For a Sunshine Realm master like Su Yuqing, this kind of competition between juniors was just an interesting thing. When she heard about it, although she was surprised by Wuxia's deep background, she didn't take it to heart. Since ancient times, there were many monstrous geniuses from various races. The more monstrous a cultivator was, the harder it was for them to grow. On the contrary, those who didn't show their prowess when they were young often ended up in high positions. But she never expected that the protagonist of the interesting story would come to the Fengsuan Mountain. Although their names were different, their realms were the same. Moreover, their names only differed by one word, and their cultivations matched. That was enough. Rumor had it that the person who had brought Wuxia to the Divine Sea battle had been a reclusive powerhouse. That person had directly taken out a 9-star treasure and tossed it into the reincarnation tree's treasure pool. In the end, he had profited greatly. A powerful cultivator who could take out a 9-star treasure so casually was naturally not to be underestimated. With such a powerful cultivator, the secret technique of the golden beast sealed in Wuxia's saber could be explained. It must have come from that powerful cultivator. But she didn't know that all of Wuxia's deductions were correct, except for the one about the seal in the saber. It could be said that it was an accident. At this moment a ray of light flew in from outside. It was Chen Xuanhai's reply. The ray of light landed in Su Yuqing's hand. She checked it and understood. Haiteng asked, "Master, is that senior sister of junior brother Lu in our Fengsuan Mountain?" Su Yuqing glanced at her, nodded and said, "Yes. 3 months ago, she accidentally trespassed here and was captured by Chen Xianhai." Haiteng instantly became nervous. "She's not injured, right?" If she was injured, it would be difficult to explain to junior brother Lu. "She's not injured." Su Yuqing shook her head. "You should know the rules of this realm. Trespassers will only be punished with 100 years of hard labor. They won't receive any harsh treatment. Now that woman is mining a mineral vein, and she receives a monthly salary." Haiteng was instantly relieved. Although the Fengsuan Mountain would capture trespassers, they indeed wouldn't treat outsiders harshly. As a top-grade realm, there were naturally various precious mineral veins inside the Fengsuan Mountain. They all needed to be carefully mined. Those with low cultivation wouldn't be able to do this, so it was best for the constellation tier to do it. But which constellation tier cultivator in this realm didn't need to cultivate? Who would have too much time to do such chores? It was just right for the trespasser to serve. However, the Fengsuan Mountain would never do anything too overboard. Although mining mineral veins was tiring, they would receive a corresponding monthly salary. It was equivalent to a forced employment relationship. After 100 years, the trespasser would regain their freedom. It was also because of this reason that even though there were Sunshine Tier cultivators guarding the Fengsuan Mountain at all times, they would never warn trespassers in advance. The Sunshine Tier cultivators guarding the Fengsuan Mountain couldn't wait for people to enter and serve. It wouldn't be good to scare them away in advance. "That's great." Haiteng was overjoyed. She was afraid that something would happen that she couldn't explain to Lu Yi. Now that she knew that junior brother Lu's senior sister was safe and sound, she was instantly relieved. She pleaded, "Master, can you get her out? Junior brother Lu has done me a favor. Since she's his senior sister, she should be considered as my guest. I naturally have to treat her with respect, but I can't ask her to serve hard labor." That was the logic. If Su Yuqing hadn't known Lu Ye's true identity, she wouldn't have minded fulfilling her disciple's request. It was nothing more than getting someone out. As one of the 3 Sunshine Tier cultivators in this realm, she had the right to do so. However, after knowing Lu Ye's true identity, Su Yuqing couldn't help but have other thoughts. It wasn't that she wanted to kill him for the bounty offered by the blood race and the insect race. These 2 races were notorious in the universe, and had been eyeing Fengsuan Mountain for tens of thousands of years. The relationship between the two races had always been bad. It was already good enough that they didn't cause trouble for these two races. Why would she do anything that pleased them? Moreover, as a sunshine tier cultivator in a top-tier realm, Su Yuqing didn't lack those bounties. She was thinking about something else. She scrutinized her disciple in front of her carefully. She's beautiful and has an exquisite figure. No matter where she goes, she'll be a rare beauty. Her aptitude is also not bad. In the future, she won't stop at the constellation tier. Yu Yao is at the very least. As for whether she can become a sunshine tier cultivator, that will depend on her luck. It seems feasible. Her master didn't say anything. Instead, she looked at Haitang from head to toe. Haitang was puzzled. Is there something on my face? After a while, Su Yuqing said, there's no problem with that girl. I'll inform Chen Xianhai later and ask him to release her. Haitang was overjoyed. Thank you, master. Su Yuqing beckoned her over. Come here. Haitang hurried over and stood in front of Su Yuqing. Su Yuqing held her hand and asked softly, what do you think of Wuxia? Haitang didn't know why her master asked this, but she answered honestly, he's very good. Su Yuqing continued, you've been with him for the past few months. Has he ever done anything rude to you? Never. Haitang shook her head. Junior brother Lu is an upright person. He doesn't even look at me with an evil gaze. How could he have done anything rude? Then, do you think he's someone you can entrust your future to? Haitang was stunned for a moment. After thinking seriously, she said, if I really have to choose someone I can entrust my future to, then junior brother Lu is indeed a very good candidate. However, master, there's nothing between junior brother Lu and I. I've been recuperating these past few months, and junior brother Lu has taken good care of me. She glanced at Su Yuqing cautiously. Why did master suddenly ask about this? Su Yuqing said, the path of cultivation is long and full of obstacles. People have to have some concerns, so that their hearts won't feel empty, and they can go further. Therefore, even if their cultivation is successful, many people will choose a Tao companion, so that they can support each other on the path of cultivation. You've been promoted to a constellation for many years. It's time to choose a Tao companion. Although she was aware of it, when Su Yuqing said this, Haitang was still a little surprised. Could it be that master wants me to become Tao companions with junior brother Lu? What do you think? No way, no way. Haitang hurriedly waved her hand. Junior brother Lu has no such intentions towards me. If master brings it up rashly, it will make things difficult for him. Su Yuqing understood the meaning behind her words and smiled slightly. In other words, there's no problem on your side. Haitang blushed slightly. I don't have that kind of feelings towards junior brother Lu. It's just that my life was saved by him. If he really has such thoughts, this disciple will not refuse. She felt a little strange. It was not that no one in the lesser human clan had become Tao companions, but it was usually a matter between the clan members. It was very rare for them to become Tao companions with outsiders. She didn't know why master suddenly had such an idea. Chapter 13:16. That's good. Go and invite him here. Tell him that I want to see him. Su Yuqing patted Haitang's hand gently. Haitang looked at her somewhat pleadingly. Master, you can't mention this to him. If junior brother Lu really agreed, it would be easy. But if he didn't, she wouldn't have the face to see him in the future. Su Yuqing knew her intentions and smiled. I won't mention it. But you can't tell him what I told you just now. Just pretend that you don't know. I can't tell him anything? Then junior brother Lu's senior sister. I have my own arrangements. I won't make things difficult for you. With a trace of doubt, Haitang descended the immortal spirit peak and found Lu Yi waiting in the valley. How is it? Lu Yi asked nervously. Although he had previously deduced that the yearning moon immortal was most likely trapped in Fengsuan Mountain, he wasn't completely sure if it was as he had deduced. If the yearning moon immortal wasn't here, then things would be troublesome. In this vast starry sky, he wouldn't know where to look for her in the future. Haitang lowered her head and avoided Lu Ye's gaze. She didn't directly answer Lu Ye's question and only said, Master asked me to bring you to see her. She still had to obey her master's orders, She couldn't directly tell Lu Yi about his senior sister, so she felt a little sorry for Lu Yi. Lu Yi nodded. Of course. He had thought about whether or not he should pay a visit to the master of this place. However, she was a constellation under the sun. If he went without being summoned, it would be somewhat presumptuous. Now that she had summoned him, there was no problem. As Haitang flew towards the immortal spirit peak, Lu Yi didn't notice anything strange about Haitang, because he was concerned about the yearning moon immortal. Just as Haitang left the main hall of the immortal spirit peak, Su Yuqing flicked her finger, and 2 rays of light flew in different directions. Not long after, the space in front of them distorted and 2 figures suddenly appeared. The one on the left had a sage-like appearance and looked hale and hearty. He was an old man who looked to be in his 60s. If the constellations of this world were here, they would definitely recognize him as one of the 3 pillars of this world, Chen Xianhai of the Cloud Sea Peak. The person on the right was a handsome young man. He was Wu Qimo of the Misty Peak. It was obvious that the 2 of them did not come here in person. They were just manifestations of their divine wills. What's the matter? Chen Xianhai asked as soon as Z appeared. Fengcun Mountain had 3 great sons. If it wasn't for something important, Su Yuqing wouldn't have used such a method to invite them over. Fengcun Mountain wasn't considered too big in the first place. If the 3 of them wanted to communicate, they could totally use their spiritual will to communicate. Something big must have happened for the 3 Rihos to gather together like this, because it would be easier for them to discuss. Su Yuqing didn't say anything about Lu Yi, but instead looked at Chen Xianhai. I want the foreign woman you captured 3 months ago. No problem. Chen Xianhai agreed, but was a little puzzled. But what do you want this person for? Su Yuqing smiled and said, what a coincidence. Today my disciple Haitang has returned, and there is a man from the human race with her. I believe the 2 of you already know. Chen Xianhai nodded, but Wu Qimo's interest was piqued. Didn't you say that your disciple fell into the ghost ship? Why did you make a mistake in your judgment? Previously, when Haitang went missing, Su Yuqing personally went out to search for her. Wu Qimo and Chen Xianhai both knew about this, and also knew that she had inferred that Haitang had fallen into the ghost ship and was dead for sure. But unexpectedly, after several months, Haitang actually returned, safe and sound, and even brought a man from the human race with her. Su Yuqing said, my judgment was correct. She did fall into the ghost ship. Chen Xianhai raised his eyebrows. She was able to escape? He had some understanding of Haitang's background, and he was even more aware of the various strange things about the ghost ship. So he couldn't figure out how Haitang could escape from the ghost ship with her background. Wu Qimo was also surprised. Amazing. I wonder what good things she brought back from the ship. Su Yuqing shook her head and sighed. Although my disciple is good, she doesn't have this kind of ability. She was able to escape this time all thanks to your help. With a thought, she passed on all the information she knew to the 2 people in front of her. After a short while, Chen Xianhai and Wu Qimo both understood the cause and effect of the matter. Chen Xianhai suddenly understood. So that's how it is. No wonder she brought back a man from the human race. There is such a great kindness. Wu Qimo also said, this boy is quite a character, actually willing to give up the great amplification spirit bead. If it were me when I was young, I definitely wouldn't have made such a choice. Even though his cultivation was much higher than Lu Ye's at this moment, he couldn't help admiring Lu Yi. Such a person who knew how to repay kindness would always win the admiration of others. The key is that this boy's mind is very sharp. He saw a glimmer of hope and succeeded. Chen Xianhai was not stingy with his praise. In such an environment where there were treasures everywhere, who would care about the life or death of others? Naturally, it was more important to get a treasure, but Lu Yi still remembered to take Haitang away. Chen Xianhai sighed. Sure enough, the human race is full of talents. If this boy didn't die, his future would be limitless. It's a pity he's not from the human race. Wu Qimo said. This boy shouldn't be related to the woman who broke into this world 3 months ago, right? Otherwise, why would Su Yuqing suddenly ask Chen Xianhai for that woman? Su Yuqing said. The 2 of them are senior sister and junior brother. After that boy took Haiding out of the Spectre ship, he heard that his senior sister had gone missing. After searching for her, he didn't expect Haiding to find her way back. He also speculated that his senior sister might have broken into Mount Fangsuan. That's a coincidence. Wuxia laughed. Since they have such a relationship, it's not good to let them serve. Later, I'll ask Brother Chen to let them go. Our Mount Fangsuan is not a tiger's den. There's no reason to treat guests like this. Chen Xianhai nodded. I'll take care of this, Wuxia said again. But fellow Taoist Su, you didn't call us here just for this, right? These things sounded interesting. But it wasn't enough to make the three great sunshine of Mount Fangsuan gather together. Su Yuqing said, Of course not. I called the two of you here for the Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition. The Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition will be held in 3 months. Do you two have any countermeasures? Hearing her say this, Wuxia felt a bit of a toothache. He shrugged. No countermeasures. Chen Xianhai also sighed. Every time the martial arts exhibition is held, we're always at the bottom. For the past several hundred years, the best result was only second place, causing the cultivation environment of our realm to become worse and worse. The younger generation of disciples is also getting worse and worse. If this vicious cycle continues, our realm's future will be bleak. Wuxia scolded. Isn't it all because those bastards are disappointing? Every time, they let others show off their strength. We three old men have put up so many good things over the years, but we don't see them holding their heads high. At this point, Wuxia suddenly frowned. Fellow Taoist Su, the main force of this martial arts exhibition is your disciple Haiding. I noticed that her aura is unstable. Could it be that she was seriously injured on the ghost ship? Previously, the reason why Mount Fangsuan stopped sailing to search for Haitong's whereabouts was not only because Haiding had a good master, but also because Haiding had to put in a lot of effort in this Black Abyss martial arts exhibition. If it wasn't for this reason, a realm definitely wouldn't stop sailing for one person. Mount Fangsuan was a realm after all, not a spirit ship that could stop sailing at will. Now that Haitong's condition wasn't good, it made the already bleak future of their realm even worse. Su Yuqing nodded. My disciple was trapped on the ghost ship for several months, so her foundation was damaged. However, she should be able to recover in 3 more months. When she held Haitong's hand earlier, she also took the opportunity to check on Haitong's condition. Hearing her say this, Chen Xianhai and Wuxia felt slightly relieved. Su Yuqing said, However, even if Haiding really fully recovers, the martial arts exhibition isn't optimistic. When have those two sides not participated in the martial arts exhibition before? Not to mention the martial arts exhibition, there are even martial arts exhibition in the late martial arts exhibition. However, on our side, even martial arts exhibition in the middle stage is rare. Wuxia said, Then what should we do? There are only 3 months left. Even if the 3 of us put in effort, it's impossible to raise the cultivation of all the participating disciples. In the end, they'll still be at the bottom. Chen Xianhai looked at Su Yuqing thoughtfully. What good plan does fellow Taoist Su have? Why don't you tell us? They had discussed the martial arts exhibition many times, so it didn't make sense for Su Yuqing to suddenly pull them over to talk about it. Obviously, there were some changes. Su Yuqing smiled slightly. It's very simple. We'll get external help. Since they couldn't count on the cultivators of their realm, they could only count on those from outside. Originally, Su Yuqing didn't have this idea, but after knowing Lu Ye's true identity, she had some ideas. Of course, the premise was that this Lu Yi was the Lu Yigu she knew. Chen Xianhai and Wuqima's hearts moved as they realized Su Yuqing's plan. You mean that brat called Lu Yi? Yes, what do you think? Wuqima pondered and said. This brat was able to escape from the ghost ship. Just this alone has surpassed 99% of the constellations in this world. He's a good choice. How's his cultivation? Early constellation stage. His cultivation is a bit lacking, Wuqima commented. To participate in the martial arts exhibition, one didn't have to be in the late constellation stage, but even the middle constellation stage was fine. At the very least, it would increase their chances of victory. If it was just the early constellation stage, Mount Fengsuan had backup candidates. Of course, late constellation stage cultivators couldn't be external help. This was the tacit rule of the three tribes. Otherwise, if everyone went to find late constellation stage external help, what would the small folk race do in the martial arts exhibition? Therefore, even if they were forced to find external help, the most they could get was a mid-constellation stage cultivator. It wasn't like there hadn't been such a precedent before. Why did you choose him? Chen Xianhai wanted to understand this matter. Sunshine Realm cultivators like them wouldn't act without thinking. Su Yuqing must have her own reasons for choosing him. Su Yuqing smiled and said, "Half a year ago, didn't our realm pass by the infinite realm? Thus, I went to look for Shui Xian to catch up with her. From her, I learned an interesting matter." They knew that Su Yuqing had a close relationship with water deity of the infinite realm. The two women were both in the Sunshine Realm and had many dealings with each other. Previously, when they passed by the infinite realm, Su Yuqing did go out for a trip. Chapter 13:17. Something that could make a Sunshine Realm cultivator say was interesting was obviously not a trivial matter. Chen Xianhai and Wu Qima both looked curious. Su Yuqing didn't keep them in suspense and said bluntly, "About 2 years ago, the once-in-a-century Alpha Origin opened at the Reincarnation Tree. Spirit Sea Realm monsters from various realms gathered and competed." Wu Qima pinched his fingers and did some calculations. He nodded and said, "It did open almost 2 years ago." He then said regretfully, "It's a pity that our Minion Mountain clan didn't have the chance to participate in such a grand event. Logically speaking, as long as one was from a large realm, one would be qualified to ask for a clone from the Reincarnation Tree. Not to mention a top-level realm like Minion Mountain. The Reincarnation Tree would never be stingy with its gifts. However, due to some special reasons, there was no clone of the Reincarnation Tree in Minion Mountain. Therefore, the Minion race had never participated in the Battle of the Spirit Sea. This was also the reason why Lu Yi was so surprised when he saw Haidang. He had encountered many strange races in the Alpha Origin realm, but he had never seen the Minion race. Did something interesting happen in the Battle of the Spirit Sea? Could it be that an unexpected dark horse had appeared? Wu Qimo asked. That's right. Su Yuqing nodded and told him what she had heard from Shui Xian that day. After a while, Chen Xianhai said thoughtfully, "According to what you said, Lu Ye from the realm of 9 heavens made a name for himself on the other side of the Reincarnation Tree. The one who came to this world with Haidang is called Lu Ye." Su Yuqing said, "They should be the same person." Haidang said that the realm Lu Yi came from is the 9 heavens realm. It doesn't make sense that there are 2 9 heavens realms in this world. As for the different names, there might be some other reason. Their early star constellation cultivation matches. Almost 2 years ago, he was at the 8th level of the Spirit Sea realm. Such a monster should be promoted to the star constellation realm after 2 years. An 8th level Spirit Sea realm cultivator can suppress a group of 9th order monsters from top level realms. He also defeated the blood race and the insect race. If this child is really Lu Ye, he'll be good. Wu Qima's eyes lit up. Generally speaking, the strength of such monstrous geniuses, who could fight above their level, could not be judged by their realm. For example, if Gu Yulo from the Yellow Dragon realm was allowed to ascend to the Constellation realm, he would definitely be able to fight above his level. Lu Ye was able to defeat Gu Yulo back then. After advancing to Constellation Mansion, he was probably stronger than Gu Yulo. Therefore, even though he was only at the early stage of Constellation Mansion, the strength he could unleash was at least equivalent to a mid-stage Constellation Mansion. Chen Xuanhai's interest was piqued as well. The question now is this Lu Yi the same Lu Ye? The 3 Sunshine cultivators looked at each other, and Wu Qima smiled. Isn't it easy to verify? Find someone to test him and he'll know. This was a matter of great importance. Although there was no problem with Su Yuqing's deduction, to be on the safe side, they had to confirm it carefully. Halfway up the Immortal Spirit Peak, Lu Yi was flying up with Haitang when he suddenly realized something. Senior Sister Haitang, I participated in the battle for the deity C for the reincarnation tree about 2 years ago. Why haven't I seen the Xiaoman race? It would be fine if he had not seen them in the Alpha Origin stage. After all, the Alpha Origin stage was not small, and it was very difficult to encounter them. However, on the White Jade platform, Yang Qing had brought him around to broaden his horizons, but Lu Yi had not seen the Xiaoman race. This was a little strange. As a top-tier domain, why hadn't Fengsuan Mountain participated in that grand event? Haiding smiled. It's a pity. The Xiaoman race also wanted to participate in the grand event for the reincarnation tree. But unfortunately, we didn't have the chance. In order to participate, we had to use the reincarnation tree's clone to teleport. However, the reincarnation tree's clone couldn't survive in Fengsuan Mountain. This might be related to the fact that Fengsuan Mountain itself is a starry sky treasure, and the reincarnation tree is also a starry sky treasure. There might be some resistance between the two. Many years ago, experts from Fengsuan Mountain went to the reincarnation tree to ask for a clone, but there was no follow-up after bringing it back. So that's how it is. He had been wondering why he hadn't seen any traces of the Xiaoman race at the reincarnation tree. It turned out that there was another reason. The reason he asked this was because he was afraid his identity would be exposed. After all, he had made a name for himself by slaughtering everyone at the reincarnation tree. If there were any Xiaoman race experts there, they might have recognized him. But now, it seemed that he had worried too much. While they were talking, a cloud of mist rushed towards them. Lu Yi didn't notice anything strange at first, but when he followed Haitang into the mist, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. He had lost track of Haitang in an instant. Senior Sister Haitang? Lu Yi stopped and called out, but there was no response. He called out again, but there was still no response. However, the mist disappeared as quickly as it came. In just a few breaths, the surrounding scenery had returned to their eyes. Haitang was gone, and it was unknown where she had gone. However, there was an unfamiliar figure not far ahead. His figure was broad and plump, but his face was not plump. He was fair and clean, and his face was kind, giving people a good impression of him. He suddenly appeared in front of them, and there was no warning at all before the mist appeared. When Lu Yi saw him, this guy was scratching his head, looking like he was in a very difficult position. There was no other way. His master had asked him to find an excuse to fight with this human in front of him, to test his capabilities. The order had been issued very suddenly, and he was not mentally prepared at all. In such a hurry, what excuse should he find? He looked at the human in front of him again. He looked very young, but his cultivation was not bad. He had the strength of a Constellation Realm cultivator. Thinking about it, it made sense. Without a Constellation Realm cultivator, it was impossible for him to wander the galaxy, so it was naturally impossible for him to come to Fengsuan Mountain. He could not find a suitable excuse at the moment, so he could only shout at Lu Yi, "Hey, human brat, this mountain was opened by me, and these trees were planted by me. If you want to pass, hee, you'll have to pay the toll." In the main hall, Su Yuqing and Chen Xianhai, who were waiting for the show to start, both looked at Wuxia. Wuxia flew into a rage. This scoundrel, where did he learn such scoundrelly words? Let him test other people's methods. How did he become a bandit? I'll teach him a lesson later. That fatty was Wuxia's direct disciple, and one of the predetermined candidates for the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition. His strength was second only to Haitang, and it could be said that his strength had reached the peak of the early Constellation Realm. He was the most suitable person to test Lu Yi. After all, it was just a test, and it was not easy to find someone whose strength surpassed Lu Yi's. In a battle of the same realm, the situation was clear. If the fatty was no match for Lu Yi, then it meant that Lu Yi had the strength of a mid-stage Constellation Realm cultivator, and could be recruited as external aid. If Lu Yi was no match, then there was nothing to discuss. At the same time, halfway up the Immortal Spirit Mountain, Lu Yi's mind was racing. For a moment, he could not figure out what was going on. He had originally followed behind Haitang, and was about to pay his respects to her master. In the end, after a period of confusion, Haitang had disappeared, and this thing had jumped out. This was obviously not an accident. There was a Sunshine Realm cultivator at the peak. Since she had summoned him, there was no reason for his disciples to stop her. Furthermore, Haitang had disappeared. So everything that had happened here must have been tacitly approved by the Sunshine Realm cultivator. He must have purposely taken Haitang away to avoid making things difficult for her. Was it a test? But what was his motive? What was certain was that Haitang's Sunshine Realm master was definitely paying attention to this. The fatty shouted for a while, and when he saw that Lu Yi did not move, he shouted again. Brat, are you deaf? I'm going to rob you. Hand over the spiritual jades. Lu Yi raised his hand, and his right hand slowly pressed down on the mountain pan saber. He lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, Attack. What? The fatty did not hear clearly, but in the next moment, he knew what Lu Yi had said. Under the violent surge of spiritual energy, Lu Yi turned into a ray of light and charged towards the fatty. His speed was so fast that the fatty was taken aback. He shouted, Brat, you don't care about martial ethics, you actually used a sneak attack. Although he said that, he still made hand seals and sent a series of spells towards Lu Yi. When Lu Yi first saw him, he thought that this guy was probably a spell cultivator, because all the fatties he knew in the land of the 9 continents were spell cultivators, and only spell cultivators could cultivate such a physique. Now it seemed that this was indeed the case. But what surprised Lu Yi was that this guy's attainment in spells was actually very high. He could use many spells at his fingertips, and there was no end to them. What surprised Lu Yi even more was that this guy could use many types of spells. Logically speaking, spells used by spell cultivators were naturally limited, and the source of this limitation was their attributes. Everyone had different attributes. If one cultivated spells that were compatible with their attributes, they would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort, and their power would also be very strong. However, if one cultivated spells that were not compatible with their attributes, the situation would be reversed. But this fatty's physique might seem a little bloated, but he did not seem to have any shortcomings in his attributes. In an instant, the spells he used were colorful and dazzling. Lu Yi dragged his saber as he moved. His body moved freely, and from time to time, he would use his saber to block the spells that he could not dodge in time. The distance between them was rapidly closing. If it was a battle of life and death, he had his own set of methods to deal with spell cultivators. He could use his imperial flying equipment to attack the spell cultivator and suppress him. However, this was not a battle of life and death, and there would definitely be sunshine cultivators watching from the shadows. It was not suitable for him to expose some of his methods. He could only fight head-on like this. This was also the most common way for a weapon cultivator to fight against a formation cultivator. Fortunately, after ascending to the constellation realm, his strength had increased greatly, and he could deal with such fierce attacks. Of course, this might have something to do with the fact that his opponent also did not use his full strength. Since this was a test, his opponent would naturally not kill him. The spells surged wildly, and Lu Yi was like a fish swimming in the opposite direction. His body shuttled through the colorful lights. The fatty was shocked. He indeed did not use his full strength, but under the premise that he was at the same level of cultivation, his spell tide would not be broken so easily. However, this unfamiliar human brat forcefully blocked it. How strong must his foundation be to do this? How pure must his spiritual power be? How iron-headed must he be? Seeing that the distance between them was rapidly closing, the fatty leaped and quickly retreated, while crazily activating his spells. Chapter 13:18. However, it was of no use. It would have been fine if the fatty had continued to stand in place and maintain the rhythm of his spells. However, the moment he retreated, his mind was distracted, and under the change of rhythm, there were also flaws in the rhythm of the spell frenzy. Lu Yi was very experienced in battle. Although these flaws were fleeting, he still accurately grasped them and rapidly closed the distance between him and the fatty. The fatty's expression began to panic, and he made mistakes in his spells several times, causing the situation to become increasingly unfavorable. In less than 10 breaths of time, The distance between the two of them had closed to 30 meters. Lu Yi leapt high into the air like an eagle, and as he descended, his saber twirled like the moon. The fatty's face was extremely pale, as if he had been frightened. Feeling the ferocious might of the saber, he shouted, "My life is over." Although he said this, he fiercely punched in Lu Ye's direction. Under this punch, the void trembled, and the fist rapidly grew in size. In the blink of an eye, it became the size of a house, blocking out the light in the sky and his figure. The fatty's pale face also disappeared, replaced by a sinister smile that Lu Yi couldn't see. If he was facing someone familiar with him, his methods wouldn't have had any effect. But today was the first time he had met Lu Yi. How could Lu Yi know what he was capable of? He was certain that Lu Yi wouldn't be able to dodge such a sudden attack. Everything before was just a disguise, all for the sake of this explosive punch. Who would have thought that a spell cultivator could use a fist? Lu Yi had already thought of this. Facing this sudden attack, he seemed to have expected it. His expression didn't change at all. The simple and unadorned mountain saber bloomed with a dazzling light, and with the support of the divine blade, his spiritual energy and blood chi surged. Slash! The blade chopped down on the huge fist. There was only a brief moment of stalemate. The fist, which was the size of a house, was like a deflated balloon, rapidly shrinking. A huge force pressed down from above, and the fatty's expression changed. His body involuntarily shrank, and he cursed inwardly. What kind of strange force was this? He couldn't block it. His fist was broken, and the saber continued to slash down. The fatty knew that if he didn't do something, he would really die. He hurriedly took out a purple talisman and slapped it on his body. In an instant, a layer of dazzling golden light appeared on his fat body. Lu Yi originally had the strength to retract his saber after slashing down, but seeing the other party's actions, he simply let go of his saber. The saber slashed down, and the saber light was like snow. "Ah!" The fatty cried out in surprise, and flew far away. The golden light on his body in an instant. He hurriedly got up, ready to fight again. However, his fat stomach suddenly loosened, and there was a faint sound of something tearing. He looked down and saw that his clothes had been torn from the middle, revealing his white belly. Hurriedly shielding himself, he glared at Lu Yi in shame and indignation. "You bastard!" He really couldn't understand how Lu Yi was able to react so perfectly to his sudden punch. Logically speaking, his punch should have caught Lu Yi off guard. Lu Yi looked at him quietly. "I have a friend who appears to be a spell cultivator, but is actually a body cultivator. Very bad. He was also a fatty, not to mention that this fatty's acting skills were really clumsy. As a spell cultivator, and also a constellation cultivator, no matter how dangerous the situation was during battle, he would not make so many mistakes in casting his spells. This kind of thing would only happen to cultivators of the Spirit Stream tier. Even cultivators of the Cloud River tier would rarely make such low-level mistakes. What more a constellation cultivator? So, after seeing the fatty's actions, Lu Yi was sure that this guy had tricked him into getting close to give him a surprise. The fatty was speechless. He had thought that he had no flaws, but who knew that his opponent had already been on guard? His loss was not undeserved. He clasped his hands at Lu Yi, and then flew away. In the hall, Su Yuqing's eyes lit up. Wu Qima was silent. Chen Xianhai nodded slightly. This guy's attacks are very sharp. The big origin talisman is so easily broken. If this guy comes as external aid, it is indeed a good choice. Being able to defeat a peak early-stage constellation cultivator so easily undoubtedly meant that he had the battle prowess of a middle-stage constellation cultivator. This kind of battle prowess was what this realm was lacking. Haiding alone couldn't do much, but if someone helped, the situation would be different. Wu Qima frowned and said, "But this is ultimately our wishful thinking. Whether he is willing to help or not is another matter. It all depends on the person. What's more, isn't his senior sister still in this realm?" Su Yuqing smiled slightly. Chen Xianhai said, "Does fellow Su want to do something to his senior sister? I'm afraid this is somewhat inappropriate. No matter what, this guy has saved Haitong's life, and now he is also Haitong's guest." Su Yuqing said, "Haitong is my disciple. Of course I won't make things difficult for her. Don't worry, I won't force him to do anything. Everything has to be done willingly. Wuxia chuckled and said, speaking of which, to be able to bring a beauty home, he probably won't refuse such a good thing, right? He turned to look at Su Yuqing. But, fellow Su, are you really willing? Su Yuqing said. If Haitang can find a good home, why wouldn't I be willing? Haitang herself won't refuse this matter. No matter what, the Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition Tournament is the most important thing now. Then I'll leave it to you. Chen Xianhai nodded, and his figure disappeared. Wu Qima followed closely behind. In the hall, only Su Yuqing was left. Su Yuqing didn't lie to Wu Qima and Chen Xianhai about everything she said. She only didn't mention that there was an expert behind Lu Yi. It wasn't that she wanted to hide anything, but she felt that there was no need to say it. Not only could that expert casually take out a 9-star treasure, but he could also seal a secret technique that could help people defeat enemies on Spectre ship. Su Yuqing couldn't help but sigh at her inferiority. Lu Ye's potential was not bad, and she had a powerful backer behind her. Such a rising star was very suitable to make friends with. If she could really make this happen, she wouldn't be treating her disciple unfairly. Of course, the most important thing was that her disciple didn't reject this aspect. If Haitang had said no before, she would not have had these thoughts. Halfway up the mountain, Lu Yi waited quietly for a moment. When she didn't see anyone, she walked up. Not long after, she arrived at the top of the Immortal Spirit Peak. Looking up, there was only a hall standing tall, and there was a faint aura inside. Although the aura was very ethereal, it gave people a very vast feeling. She immediately understood that the person inside the hall must be Sunshine, and the person who could be here was undoubtedly Haitang's master. Straightening her clothes, Lu Yi stepped in and saw a woman sitting cross-legged in the empty hall. Looking at her for a moment, she couldn't tell her age. She seemed to be in her late 20s, but also in her early 30s. Her temperament was pure, but also full of charm. She was a national beauty, and even though she was sitting cross-legged, it couldn't hide her graceful figure. Haitang was undoubtedly a beautiful woman, but compared to the woman in front of her, she lacked a lot of charm. Lu Yi respectfully stepped forward. Junior Lu Yi greets Senior. Su Yuqing smiled slightly and raised her hand. No need to be so polite, sit down. Lu Yi sat down obediently. The hall was spacious and empty. Su Yuqing scrutinized Lu Yi from top to bottom. For a moment she was speechless. Lu Yi sat still and looked back with a clear expression. She was curious. Master Haitang seemed to be looking at her strangely. After a while, Su Yuqing smiled and said, Haitang has already told me about all the previous encounters. Virtuous Nephew was able to treat those treasures as nothing and take Haitang out of the Spectre ship. This queen must thank Virtuous Nephew for this kindness. Lu Yi hurriedly said, Senior Sister Haitang helped me a lot on the Spectre ship. In the end, it was all because of her efforts that this junior was able to pass the test. If it weren't for Senior Sister Haitang, this junior is afraid that this junior would be in a situation of being imprisoned at this moment. Senior Sister and I were just helping each other, so it's natural for me to bring her out. Su Yuqing was undoubtedly very satisfied with his attitude, and her expression became more and more kind. That's true, but in the situation at that time, how many people can make the choice you did? You made the choice, so you are Haitang's savior. Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat, fearing that the other party would say something like, since he is her savior, I should repay him with my body. That would be big trouble. Fortunately, Su Yuqing had no intention of saying this. Lu Yi wanted to ask why the fat man blocked the way just now, but the other party didn't mention it, so Lu Yi simply pretended that nothing had happened just now. He went straight to the point. Senior, this junior came here with Senior Sister Haitang this time, because I have a request. Su Yuqing said, It's about your senior sister, right? Haitang has already told me. Lu Ye's expression turned solemn. May I ask, Senior, has my senior sister ever been to Mount Fengsuan? Su Yuqing nodded slightly. 3 months ago, there was indeed a human woman who trespassed into this world, and was captured by the Cloud Sea Peak's peak master, Chen Xianhai. But you can rest assured that this world has never been harsh to the cultivators who trespass into this world. We just let them do some manual labor. After Chen Xianhai captured her, he placed her in a mind-to-mind spiritual ore. I have already spoken to Chen Xianhai and asked him to release her. Haitang is now going to pick her up. Lu Yi heaved a long sigh of relief, and the heavy stone in his heart was lifted. He quickly got up and bowed to Su Yuqing. Many thanks, Senior. Su Yuqing smiled. You are Haitang's benefactor, which means you are a guest of the immortal spirit peak. Since that woman is your senior martial sister, she should be treated differently. It's just that. At this point, Su Yuqing revealed a troubled expression. Did something happen? Lu Yi asked. Su Yuqing said, You don't know, but among the 3 great sons of this world, Chen Xianhai is the most old-fashioned and stubborn. Any foreign cultivator who trespasses into this world will have to serve for 100 years. This is a rule set by the ancestors, and has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. What I mean is that since that woman is your senior sister, she can naturally be a guest of this world, and come and go freely. But that old man Chen Xianhai insisted on adhering to this rule, and I couldn't do anything about it. After much persuasion, your senior sister was finally spared from the hardship of serving. Although she can come and reunite with you now, she can't leave this world for the time being. I have to apologize to you for this. It's the new year, and I might be a little busy visiting relatives and friends in the first month. I will try my best to maintain 2 updates a day. Everyone, please forgive me. If there is only 1 update a day, it means there is a guest at home. End of chapter. Chapter 13:19. Su Yuqing spoke, as if she was telling the truth. If Chen Xianhai was here, he would definitely argue with her. Lu Yi hurriedly said, Senior, you're too serious. I'm already very grateful that Senior is willing to mediate this matter for my senior sister. I wouldn't dare to blame you. However, is there a way to resolve this matter? Su Yuqing shook her head. It's difficult. Among the 3 sunshine masters of this world, Chen Xianhai is the oldest. As you know, old men are stubborn. It's very difficult for outsiders to change their minds. I can only say that I'll try my best to negotiate with him, so that you can bring your senior sister away as soon as possible. Then I'll have to trouble Senior. Lu Yi was very grateful. Although he couldn't bring the missing moon immortal out of Mount Fangsuan for the time being, it wasn't a bad thing to be exempted from 100 years of hard labor. As for what would happen after that, he could only plan slowly. He had a good relationship with Haitang, and it seemed that Haitang's master was also willing to help. At most, he would pay some spirit jades and apologize to Chen Xianhai. He had to bring the missing moon immortal out. He couldn't let her stay here alone. After that, Su Yuqing asked Lu Yi a few more questions. However, they weren't secrets. She only asked about his background, his master, and even his age. Lu Yi answered them one by one. As they chatted, Lu Yi could feel the Sunshine Master's admiration for him. He naturally attributed it to him bringing Haitang out of spectership. If he were in someone else's shoes, Lu Yi would definitely think the same of someone who saved someone close to him. About an hour later, Su Yuqing suddenly looked up in a certain direction. Her gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the void. After a few breaths, she retracted her gaze and smiled. You can go now. Haitang has brought your senior sister back. Lu Yi hurriedly got up. Thank you, Senior. As for what happens next, Su Yuqing comforted him. Don't worry, I'll do my best. Lu Yi left the immortal spirit peak and rushed back to the valley. From afar, he saw Haitang standing side by side with a girl. Who else could it be but the missing Moon Immortal? Clearly, Thought Moon Immortal had also learned of the situation from Haitang. When she saw Lu Yi rushing over, she turned her head somewhat abruptly. Back then, when Lu Yi joined the military province guards and rushed to Ash Flame Mountain Pass to take up his post, he was only at the True Lake Realm. She, on the other hand, was at the Divine Ocean Realm. Moreover, she was at the Divine Ocean Realm, a Divine Ocean Realm expert who had long been famous throughout the 9 provinces. The difference between the two of them was huge, and in the end, Lu Yi was tormented by her. It had only been a few years, but they were already standing on the same starting line. Now that he was in trouble, it was Lu Yi who had spared no effort to rescue him. Unfortunately, he had really found the place. Previously, when she had been captured, Nian Yuxian had thought that she would really have to work hard here for 100 years. She had also tried to resist, but this realm had Rizhao holding down the fort. There were also many Yu Yao. How could she resist? He could only accept his fate, but he never thought that there would be such a turn of events. In this situation, Thought Moon Immortal felt as though she was being mischievous and had been saved by a child. It made her unable to control herself. She was someone from the same generation as Feng Wujiang, and Lu Yi was Feng Wujiang's junior brother. In her heart, she had indeed always treated Lu Yi as a child. Senior sister Nian. Lu Yi stepped forward and carefully looked at Thought Moon Immortal. Are you alright? Although Haitang and Su Yuqing had both said that Fengsuan Mountain would not treat intruders harshly, this matter had to be confirmed first before he could be at ease. Thought Moon Immortal tilted her head and hesitated for a while before saying, I'm fine. That's good. Lu Yi nodded and looked at Haitang. Senior sister Haitang has worked hard. Haitang waved her hand and said, It's not hard, it's just a trip. Looking at Lu Yi, and then at Thought Moon Immortal, she sensed that the atmosphere was not right, so she found an excuse to slip away. Master has summoned me, so I have to go. You two can talk first. Saying so, she took out a jade talisman and handed it to Lu Yi. This is my talisman. If junior brother Lu needs anything, you can contact me through this talisman at any time. Lu Yi solemnly received it. The local cultivators of 9 regions could contact each other through the battlefield imprint. But in this vast starry sky, 99% of the domains did not have such a convenient means. After all, those domains did not have heaven's secret like Little 9, so they generally used other ways to contact each other. Lu Yi had come into contact with things like sound transmission stones before, which were made of a special material, and he could also refine them himself. However, the range of the sound transmission stone was limited, so it was not suitable for Constellation Realm cultivators to use. What was suitable for Constellation Realm cultivators was the talisman, which was also the most common means of communication used by cultivators in today's starry sky. Lu Yi put away the talisman and looked around. After confirming that there was no one around, he waved at Thought Moon Immortal and entered the hall. Seeing his sneaky look, Thought Moon Immortal didn't know what he was going to do, so she curiously followed him. When they reached the inner room, Lu Yi asked, Senior sister, no one bullied you, right? Thought Moon Immortal didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but she also felt Lu Ye's concern. She nodded and said, No, I was just arranged to mine the spirit mine there, and I can get my monthly salary in 2 days. Because of you, I've worked in vain this month. Lu Yi was also amused by her and asked, How much is your monthly salary here? 10 pieces of spirit jades. Not bad. Lu Yi thought that even if there was a monthly salary, it would just be a casual gesture. He didn't expect there to be 10 pieces. According to his previous calculation, these 10 pieces of spirit jades were enough for a month of cultivation in the early stage of Constellation Realm. How did you find this place, and how did you know that Haitang? After chatting for a while, the embarrassment in Thought Moon Immortal's heart dissipated. It was already like this, so what if she was embarrassed? In any case, only Lu Yi knew about her embarrassing state, so she just had to seal his mouth when they got out of this place. She had a cold temperament and didn't have too many questions, but this matter really made her curious. It's a long story. Lu Yi sighed leisurely. Then make it short. Thought Moon Immortal glared at him and put on the airs of a senior sister. Yes, yes, yes. Lu Yi really didn't dare to do anything in front of her. Thinking back to when he was at the Blue Flame Mountain Pass, it was Thought Moon Immortal who came out to save his life when he was in danger at the Lonely Mountain Pass. In Lu Ye's heart, although Thought Moon Immortal had never joined the Blue Blood sect, she was also one of the real senior sisters. At that moment, he told her about all his adventures, which surprised Thought Moon Immortal. She had also set out from the 9 provinces to explore the surrounding starry skies, but her journey was not as exciting as Lu Ye's. Basically, she had spent her time in loneliness. It was only at the end that she encountered a small drifting mountain. She had wanted to go up to look for spiritual jades, but in the end, she had bumped into Fengsuan Mountain. In that case, you saved Haitang, but also got my clues, and then followed Haitang all the way here. Thought Moon Immortal, there were really a lot of coincidences. But if she missed any one of them, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to see Lu Yi. That's why they say good people are rewarded. Lu Yi was deeply moved. What's the situation now? Can we leave at any time? Thought Moon Immortal asked. Although there was a monthly salary for serving here, there was little time for her to cultivate, so even if she took the spirit jades, it was not of much use. Not only for her, but for all the constellations in 9 regions. The most important thing right now was to quickly improve their own cultivation. Therefore, if she could leave, Thought Moon Immortal was not willing to stay here. Lu Yi revealed a trace of worry. It's not that simple. I heard from Master Haitang that the person who captured you didn't want to let you go, because any cultivator who enters this world will have to serve for 100 years. This is a rule set by their ancestors. Some people strictly adhere to their ancestors' rules and don't know how to be flexible. They are very stubborn. It was only because Master Haitang intervened that you were rescued temporarily. Thought Moon Immortal seriously recalled Chen Xuanhai's appearance and nodded. That Rizhao who captured me is indeed quite old. He doesn't seem to be a good person. Senior sister, don't worry. Master Haitang said that she will mediate again. You and I have to leave safely. Lu Yi was actually not too worried about this matter. Chen Xianhai was Rizhao, and Su Yuqing was also Rizhao. They should be able to have a good talk. Of course, the premise was that Su Yuqing was willing to do a lot in the middle. If she was just being perfunctory, then it was hard to say what would happen next. However, looking at Su Yuqing's appreciation of her before, Lu Yi felt that she should not be a person who said one thing on the surface and another behind her back. There's nothing to do. Senior sister can cultivate in peace. Let's wait for the news. Lu Yi said. That's the only way. Thought Moon Immortal nodded. Lu Yi handed over a storage bag to her. Thought Moon Immortal took it suspiciously. When she opened it, she found that it was full of spirit jades. There were nearly 1,000 of them. She was shocked. Where did you get so many? She had also collected them along the way, but the amount of spirit jades she had collected was not even half of what Lu Yi had. And this was only what Lu Yi had given her. He must have more of his own. I went out with Senior Yangqing previously and obtained them by accident. Senior sister, take them first. If you don't have enough, let me know. Lu Yi had only told Jian Guhong and Wu Chang about the reincarnation tree. However, this information had already been disseminated by Jian Guhong in the 9 continents constellation realm. Everyone knew about Lu Ye's situation at the reincarnation tree. Therefore, when she heard him say this, Thought Moon Immortal understood. She did not stand on ceremony with him. She kept the storage bag and said, "Then I'll keep it." Then the two of them went to their respective rooms to cultivate. This valley was the territory of the Immortal Spirit Peak. It was usually empty and was only used to entertain guests. Naturally, the buildings were complete. Moreover, under Haitang's arrangements, there were more than 10 true Lake Realm disciples who were at his beck and call. However, Lu Yi did not want to trouble them. He was not in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he took out the musical note that Haitang had given him and began to study it. It was easy for the cultivators of the 9 continents to communicate with each other within the range of Tianji. However, if they were out of Tianji's range, they would have to find a new method of communication. This musical note was undoubtedly a very good one. Lu Yi wanted to know if he could refine it with his own abilities. Chapter 1320. For the next few days, Lu Yi studied the musical notes and gained insight into the various mysteries within them. Musical notes were widespread throughout the entire starry sky, and refining them was not difficult at all. Anyone who had some attainments in the Tao of Spirit runes could refine them, because there were more complicated spirit runes within them. Lu Ye's attainments in the path of spirit patterns could naturally meet the requirements of refining musical notes. What he lacked now was the materials. He had never seen this kind of jade stone used to refine musical notes. Presumably, it was not an ordinary jade stone. At the very least, It was something that did not exist in the 9 regions. This was easy to handle. He just had to send a message to Haitang to see if she could help him get some. He could pay the corresponding amount of spirit jades and treat it as a purchase. After a while, Haitang replied, telling him to wait in the valley, and that she would arrange for someone to deliver it to him. As for the spirit jades, there was no need. Haitang said that this kind of jade stone was not too precious, so why would she accept Lu Ye's spirit jades? Lu Ye did not stand on ceremony and waited patiently. On the immortal spirit peak, in a secret room, Haitang let out a long sigh after ending the transmission with Lu Ye. She had originally planned to visit the Lu siblings frequently in the next few days. No matter what, Lu Ye was her guest. As the host, there was naturally no reason for her to leave her guest to the side. This was not how the human tribe treated their guests. However, her master had strictly ordered her to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time in preparation for the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition in a few months. She was not allowed to go out without orders. Haitang had no choice but to obey. In the valley, Lu Ye did not have to wait for long before a spirit sea realm cultivator flew over and delivered a storage ring. Lu Ye checked it and found that it was indeed the kind of jade stone he needed. Moreover, there was a lot of it, enough for him to squander. From this point of view, this thing was indeed not too precious. He then began to refine musical notes with peace of mind. At first, it was not smooth. After all, everything was a process of practice. After a few days, he finally managed to refine the first musical note. He excitedly found Thought Moon Immortal and handed her the musical note. Then, the two went to different places and began to communicate with the help of musical notes, which could be considered as an experiment. Everything went smoothly. Although this method of communication was not as convenient and fast as the battlefield imprint, it had one advantage, which was that it was no longer restricted by the range of heaven's secrets. The distance of communication was much farther than the sound transmission stone. As for the specific limit, Lu Ye was not too clear. He had to verify it in the future. In any case, in terms of communication, the 9 regions could be considered to be connected to the starry sky. In the future, when they went out, if they encountered cultivators from other realms who used sound talismans, they would not act like country bumpkins. In the following period of time, Lu Ye continued to refine more musical notes. Firstly, it was to practice her own skills, and secondly, it was to prepare for the constellations in the 9 regions. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ye had a large number of musical notes in his hands, which was enough for the 9 continents' constellations to divide among themselves. Each of them had one piece, and there were still some left. Although he knew that the road to happiness was strewn with setbacks, there was a reality that he needed to face. That was Fengsuan Mountain was constantly moving. He and Thought Moon Immortal couldn't stay here for too long. If they stayed here for too long, even if the two of them left Fengsuan Mountain, they might not be able to find their way home. Therefore, the matter of Thought Moon Immortal had to be solved as soon as possible. Others were helping him, so he couldn't urge them. But so much time had passed, so there should be some news. It shouldn't be so troublesome to communicate with sunshine cultivators. Lu Ye sent another message to Haitang, and soon received a reply. However, Haitang's tone was somewhat helpless. Junior brother Lu, wait for me over there for a moment. I will come and talk to you in person. Previously, Su Yuqing let Haitang go into seclusion to cultivate and recuperate, but also told her one thing. That was, if Lu Ye inquired about information, she should explain the situation to him in person. As for what the situation was, Haitang didn't know for the time being. She had to ask Su Yuqing. Coming out of seclusion, Haitang saw her master and listened to her teachings. Then, she went down the immortal spirit peak with a heavy heart. Arriving at Lu Ye's residence, she greeted Lu Ye and Thought Moon Immortal. Lu Ye said, "Senior sister Haitang, is there a problem?" Haitang's complexion didn't look too good. This made Lu Ye feel that something was wrong. Su Yuqing had personally made a move. Was it still useless? How stubborn was Chen Xianhai? Haitang looked at Lu Ye, then at Thought Moon Immortal. Her expression was guilty. She said softly, "Master said that she had already negotiated with Marshal Uncle Chen. At first, Martial Uncle Chun insisted on the rules passed down by his ancestors. But in the end, he was persuaded by Master to let fellow Nian leave. If that was the case, Haiding wouldn't be so worried. Lu Yi asked calmly, "Is there any other condition?" Haiding bit her red lips and nodded slowly. "Tell me," Lu Yi said. "If it's not some difficult condition, we will definitely do our best." Haiding stammered for a while, then said, "Martial Uncle Chen said that since ancient times, all intruders have to serve in Mount Fangsuan for 100 years. Even those from the top domains are the same. There has never been a precedent of breaking the rules. This can't be opened. Otherwise, no one will take Mount Fangsuan seriously in the future." So he proposed a compromise. "I'd like to hear the details." Haiding lifted her head and glanced at Thought Moon Immortal. Martial Uncle Chen said that if fellow Taoist Nian can find a man in Mount Fangsuan and become Tao companions with him, then she will be considered a member of Mount Fangsuan. The rules for outsiders will naturally not apply. Hearing this, Thought Moon Immortal turned to leave. Her voice floated over. "I choose to serve here for 100 years. It was impossible for her to find a Tao companion in Mount Fangsuan." Lu Yi turned to look at her departing figure. After a long time, she retracted her gaze and said in a low voice, "Is there no other way to bend the rules?" The shame on Haitong's face deepened. "Junior Martial Brother Lu, I'm sorry. I thought this wouldn't be too troublesome. Who knew that Martial Uncle Chen Xianhai would?" She really couldn't understand how things had developed to this point. Previously, when she met her honored master, and her honored master told her this, she knew that the situation was not good. She was almost too ashamed to meet Lu Yi. But she couldn't not come. She could only brace herself and come. Lu Yi waved her hand. "This has nothing to do with you, Senior Martial Sister Haitang. You don't have to blame yourself. But please forgive us for not being able to agree to this condition." If it weren't for the fact that his strength was inferior, Lu Yi would have attacked Cloud Sea Peak the moment he heard that condition. He wanted to see what kind of freak Chen Xianhai was, to actually propose such a condition. But the difference in strength between Xinghua and Rizhao was too great. Even if Lu Yi really went to look for them, it would be useless. If Thought Moon Immortal wasn't allowed to leave, Lu Yi naturally couldn't leave alone. He thought to himself that if this was the case, he would accompany Thought Moon Immortal here for 100 years. Anyway, he was a guest of Mount Fangsuan, and could enter and leave this place as he pleased. It wouldn't affect his cultivation too much. "Junior Martial Brother Lu, don't worry. I'll go ask Honored Master again. I'll definitely let you two leave safely." Haiding didn't have the face to stay any longer. After saying this, she rushed into the sky, and went straight to Immortal Spirit Peak. After Haiding left, Lu Yi stood in place for a long time in silence. Then, he turned and went to Thought Moon Immortal's room. He raised his hand, and gently knocked on the door. After getting permission, he pushed open the door and entered. Thought Moon Immortal was sitting cross-legged on a praying mat. It looked like she was cultivating. Seeing her like this, Lu Yi was slightly relieved. She could still cultivate, which meant that the matter just now didn't affect her state of mind. Thinking about it, she was already at the constellation realm. Her state of mind wouldn't be shaken by the words of others. Lu Yi sat down in front of her. He opened his mouth, but swallowed his words. There were some things that he wanted to ask, but it wasn't convenient for him to do so. He regretted coming over. Thought Moon Immortal rolled her eyes at him. "If you have something to say, just say it. As a man, don't be so wishy-washy." Lu Yi blushed with shame and said, "Senior sister, I want to ask about my eldest senior brother." That? Are you still in love with your eldest senior brother?" Thought Moon Immortal finished the sentence herself. Lu Yi chuckled and said, "That's exactly what I mean." Thought Moon Immortal didn't even think about it. "In our era, your eldest senior brother was the most dazzling figure in the 9 provinces, and the brightest star in the sky. Which woman didn't yearn for love? Well, women all admire heroes and look up to the strong. It's not just me. There are many women you know and don't know who all have deep feelings for your eldest senior brother. Let's talk about you." Lu Yi looked at her. "Me too." Thought Moon Immortal showed a rare smile, and a look of recollection flashed across her eyes. At that time, I followed your eldest senior brother, and together with Taishan, we were called his right-hand men. Taishan and him were brothers. I was a woman, so I naturally had some other thoughts. Well, it was a very beautiful time, and also an unforgettable time. However, your eldest senior brother eventually chose another woman and became her biological daughter. In the final battle, your eldest senior brother also died in battle. Of course, now we know that his death was a pretense, but at that time, his body was found by Taishan, who would know that he was still alive and living in another domain. Decades have passed. Time can change a lot of things. Some people have forgotten your eldest senior brother, but some people still remember him. However, this is just a memory after all. Even if he comes back from the dead and returns again, memories are just memories. Do you understand? Lu Yi roughly understood Thought Moon Immortal's mood. She nodded and said, I understand. Thought Moon Immortal made it very clear that for her, Feng Wujiang was just a memory of the past. Some things had already become a foregone conclusion, so she would no longer be nostalgic about the past. Memories were indeed beautiful, but people couldn't always live in memories, which would only make people stagnate. I'm a little busy today. I'm going to pay a New Year's visit to the various families of my clan. First, I'll pay a New Year's greeting to all my brothers and sisters here. I wish you all a happy New Year's rabbit and infinite wealth. End of this chapter. Chapter 1321. This was also in line with Thought Moon Immortal's motto, as a sword cultivator. A sword cultivator's sword would always press forward courageously. Cultivators cultivated for a long time, who didn't have a few special people or events in their memories. However, these people and events would never become obstacles to a cultivator's cultivation. Instead, they should be a kind of motivation. When one was troubled, recalling these memories and thinking about how pure and innocent they were back then, they would smile knowingly. Junior brother, you can't believe everything a person says. Thought Moon Immortal suddenly said. What? Lu Yi looked at her in confusion. Thought Moon Immortal said. As you said, if Su Yuqing was really willing to do her best to mediate, Qin Xianhai had no reason to not give her face at all. After all, there are only 3 sunshine cultivators on Mount Fangxuan. They should know each other very well. Moreover, that Qin Xianhai might not have thought of our reaction after proposing such a condition. He's obviously forcing us. Think carefully again. What did Su Yuqing say to you? Lu Yi looked thoughtful as he recalled Su Yuqing's words. After a while he replied. At that time, she didn't say too much. She only said that she would discuss it with Qin Xianhai. Senior sister means, Haitong's master didn't go all out? Thought Moon Immortal said. Perhaps I'm gauging the heart of a gentleman with my own yardstick. But I keep feeling that something is wrong. Lu Yi was just about to say something when suddenly, the earth began to shake violently as a violent and ferocious fluctuation of energy came from outside. Even though they were inside the room, Lu Yi and Yang Kai felt as if they were on a boat drifting about in the middle of the sea. Not only were their bodies unstable, but even their minds were somewhat shaken. Their expressions changed at the same time, and they hurriedly flashed away. Looking up, they saw 2 streaks of light rapidly clashing in the distant sky, shaking the heavens and splitting the earth. And within those 2 streaks of light, there was the aura of a sunshine cultivator. Was Mount Fangxuan invaded? Lu Yi immediately had such a thought. But he soon realized that he was wrong, because one of the 2 sunshine cultivators suddenly shouted, Qin Xianhai, you stubborn old man. When will you be enlightened? As she finished speaking, another earth-shattering sound rang out. Then another dignified voice rang out. The ancestral teachings are the ancestral teachings. If we don't respect the ancestral teachings, how can there be ethics? Lu Yi was dumbfounded. Even Thought Moon Immortal was stunned. Junior brother, this is... The corners of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. It seems that Haitong's master has attacked the Cloud Sea Peak. This woman was fierce. Lu Yi also had the idea of attacking Cloud Sea Peak. Of course, it was just a thought. Who knew that Su Yuqing not only had such thoughts, but also did it? And from the conversation between the two, it was clear that a conflict had arisen because of the Thought Moon Immortal. Just now, He had been chatting with Nian Yuxian about this. Nian Yuxian had suspected that he had not used his full strength, but from the looks of it, that did not seem to be the case. He had saved Haitang. Yet Su Yuqing was willing to shed all pretense of cordiality with Chen Xianhai in order to help Haitang repay him for saving her life. It would be too much to say that she did not go all out. Haitang's master was very responsible. Indeed, to be able to raise a disciple like Haitang, her master was not bad either. She was serious about it. The 3 Sunshine Immortals were the 3 pillars of Mount Fangxuan. How many years had it been since they had fought, let alone fought like this? For a moment, countless cultivators on Mount Fangxuan and Thousand Spirit Peaks revealed worried expressions. They did not understand what was going on. In the midst of the fierce battle, the aura of another Sunshine Immortal appeared. It was Wuxia. He shouted from afar, "Please stop, the 2 of you. If there's anything, let's sit down and talk. There's no need to fight like this." Su Yuqing's angry voice rang out. This stubborn old man doesn't understand the ways of the world. He's stubbornly clinging to the teachings of his ancestors. Today I'll enlighten him. Chen Xianhai was not to be outdone. If the teachings of our ancestors can be broken, then there will be no rules in the future. Calm down, the 2 of you. There are so many disciples below watching us make a fool of ourselves. Wu Qima tried to smooth things over. Another Sunshine Immortal joined the battle, seemingly wanting to stop the fight. As a result, the situation became even more chaotic. The entire Mount Fangxuan was filled with the aura of the Sunshine Immortals. Fortunately, the 3 of them had restrained themselves, so there were no serious consequences. In the valley, Lu Yi and Thought Moon Immortal watched in silence. After a long while, Thought Moon Immortal sighed. "Junior brother, I'm afraid I've wronged Master Haitang. For others to fight so hard for their own matters, it meant that they had really done their best and given it their all." Lu Yi nodded silently. He could not help but feel a trace of guilt in his heart. He secretly decided to thank Master Haitang properly when he returned. Whether this matter succeeded or not, Su Yuqing's character was irreproachable. In the entire Mount Fangxuan, almost everyone knew that the 3 Sunshine Immortals were fighting in a chaotic battle. However, no one saw that 3 figures stood quietly above the clouds. They were Su Yuqing, Chen Xianhai, and Wu Qima. The ones fighting below were not their true bodies, but their personal talismans. Chen Xianhai frowned. He had a helpless expression. "Fellow Taoist Su, is there a need to go to this extent? It's not like we can't talk to him directly." Su Yuqing smiled. "It might be possible to talk to him directly, but there's no guarantee that he won't use his full strength. After all, this is a matter of the human tribe. It has nothing to do with him. If we put on a show and let him know of my sincerity, it'll be easy to talk to him about this matter." Chen Xianhai sighed. "It's a pity that I've been famous all my life. After this matter, he might really be called a stubborn old man." Wu Qima chuckled from the side. "The 3 of us have joined forces to put on a show here. We've given that kid enough face. If he dares to say no later, I'll twist his head off." Su Yuqing sighed. "In the end, it's because the juniors are useless. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. It was also because the Black Abyss Martial Arts exhibition ground was too important. Otherwise, the 3 of them would not have to go through so much trouble. They could only hope that things would develop according to their original plan. One of them was playing the bad cop, while the other was playing the good cop. Although the method was a little old-fashioned, it was too realistic, so the effect was not bad." Wu Qima said, "But Taoist Su, in this case, you'll really have to accompany Haitang. Are you willing to?" Su Yuqing said, "I still say the same thing. If Haitang can really become a good match with him, it won't be a bad thing for Haitang. Just wait and see. In the future, this kid will definitely become a great person." Moreover, Haitang herself did not reject this matter. She had asked Haitang before, otherwise, she would not have done this. If her own disciple was unwilling, she would not force her. The battle between the 2 Sunshine cultivators finally ended under Wu Qima's mediation. Su Yuqing left behind some harsh words and flew back to the Immortal Spirit Mountain angrily. In the valley, Lu Yi and Nian Yuxian looked at each other, not knowing what to say. After a long while, Lu Yi said, I have to find a chance to thank Senior Su. Nian Yuxian nodded silently. I'll go with you later. If this matter really doesn't work out, there's no need to force it. It's just 100 years. It was originally not a big deal, but now, it caused the sunshine cultivators of Fengsuan Mountain to start fighting among themselves. Both Lu Yi and Nian Yuxian felt uncomfortable. The two of them did not know that this was a show targeted at them. It could only be said that the older the ginger, the spicier it was, especially for sunshine cultivators. If they were willing to put down their pride and put on a show, Lu Yi and Nian Yuxian, who were in the constellation realm, would not be able to see through any flaws. The universe was so treacherous, and danger was everywhere. One day later, Haiding came. Lu Yi and Nian Yuxian received her together and asked about what happened yesterday. Haiding told them the truth. In fact, she didn't know much. Su Yuqing didn't tell her about all of her plans, because Su Yuqing knew her disciple's character. In the face of a savior like Lu Yi, she couldn't hide anything. Therefore, Haitong's knowledge was limited. She only knew that her master fought with Chen Xianhai yesterday and was pulled away by Wuxia. Lu Yi sighed. I've troubled Senior Su. Senior Sister Haitang, may I trouble you to inform Senior Su that I'd like to pay her a visit and thank her in person? Haiding said, there's no hurry. I'm actually here to tell you something. It concerns fellow Taoist Nian's fate. Is there a change in the situation? Lu Yi was shocked. If that was the case, then Su Yuqing's actions yesterday were not useless. After the battle yesterday, Su Yuqing left behind some harsh words and returned to the Immortal Spirit Mountain. He thought that there was no hope. Yes, Haiding nodded. I'd like to hear the details. Lu Yi looked at her attentively. Haitang glanced at him, and a bashful expression flashed across her eyes. Lu Yi did not notice it, but Nian Yuxian saw it clearly. She was puzzled. She did not know what Haitang wanted to say, and why she was so bashful. Calming her mind, Haitang said, Master and Martial Uncle Chen had a discussion yesterday and finally reached an agreement. That is, if Junior Martial Brother Lu is willing to help Mount Fengsuan, he can bring fellow Taoist Nian away regardless of the outcome. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows and did not immediately agree. Instead, he said cautiously, if it's within my ability, then there's no problem. However, if it's beyond my ability, then I can only refuse. Haiding said, naturally it's within Junior Brother Lu's ability. Moreover, there won't be any danger to your life. Lu Yi smiled and said, then I'd like to hear it. There was actually such a good thing. Sure enough, Su Yuqing's actions yesterday were not in vain. It's like this. In another 2 months, Mount Fengsuan's Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition, which is held once every 50 years, will begin. Among the people originally scheduled for this world, one of them encountered a problem in his cultivation and is unable to participate. Therefore, there's a shortage of people. Martial Uncle Chen said that if you're willing to help make up the numbers, then he'll agree to let you take fellow Taoist Nian away. So difficult. This plot has 3 directions. I have to think about which direction to go. Chapter 1322. The Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition? Fighting with others? Lu Yi asked. As long as it was called a martial arts exhibition, it would definitely be related to fighting. If that was the case, Lu Yi would definitely have no problems. However, he would have to find out the level of his opponent first. If he was asked to fight against Yu Yao, he would have no chance at all. It's not just fighting. The Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition has a very complicated set of rules, Haitang explained. However, it's true that your life won't be in danger. Senior Apprentice Sister Haitang, please explain in detail, Lu Yi said. This was an opportunity that Su Yuqing and Chen Xianhai had exchanged for by shedding all pretense of cordiality. He naturally had to cherish this opportunity. Haitang immediately told Lu Yi about the Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition. Junior Apprentice Brother Lu, you must have noticed before entering Mount Fengsuan. Our Mount Fengsuan isn't complete. Lu Yi nodded. At that time, he had indeed noticed this because Mount Fengsuan clearly showed signs of being broken. After Haitang's explanation, he realized that he hadn't seen wrongly. The complete Mount Fengsuan, could be said to be a supreme treasure of the starry skies. It was extremely mysterious. However, for some reason, it was split into 3 parts. The realm that Haitang was in was considered the eastern part of Mount Fangsuan. There were also 2 other divisions in the south and west, both of which were called Mount Fangsuan. Moreover, the people living in these 2 divisions were the Minimen race, each of them drifting about in the starry skies. Lu Yi didn't know what kind of foundation the other top-grade realms had. But when he looked at this realm, although there were many constellations and moon fairies, the number of sunshine was obviously low. There were only 3 of them. This actually didn't match the foundation of a top-grade realm. There were a few large-scale realms that had more sunshine than this realm. However, in reality, the strength of the Minimen race had been split into 3 because of Mount Fangsuan. If Mount Fangsuan was complete, the Minimen race would have no less than 10 Sunshine Realm cultivators. This was already the standard of a top-grade realm. There was also another mysterious thing. Although Mount Fangsuan was split into 3 parts, each of them drifting about in the starry skies, in reality, the connection between them would never be broken due to distance. Simply put, even though Mount Fangsuan was a supreme treasure of the starry skies, in reality, there was still a mysterious connection between them. Using this method, the various divisions could easily contact each other. If they paid a certain price, they could even teleport cultivators to each other. The Blood Tribe had once set their sights on this realm, and when this realm passed through a certain region of the starry sky, they launched a surprise attack with a large number of powerful beings. If this realm had only relied on the strength of this realm, then that battle would have definitely been disastrous. However, because they received timely support from the other 2 tribes, they were still able to force the Blood Tribe into retreat in that battle. Moreover, they also made the Blood Tribe pay an extremely heavy price. It was also after that battle that no other race dared to have designs on Mount Fangsuan in the vast starry skies. On the surface, they only needed to deal with 1 unit, but once the battle started, they would have to deal with 3 units. Who could withstand that? When the miniature humans encountered external enemies, they were able to quickly unite as one. It was because everyone knew that even if the Fangsuan mountain was split into 3 parts, it would still maintain a mysterious connection. If one part of the mountain was taken over by an external race, then the remaining 2 parts wouldn't have a good ending either. At that time, they would only be defeated one by one. However, there were also some internal conflicts within the lesser humans. They were fighting over the foundation of the domain. Mount Fangsuan was originally a single entity, and its foundation was fixed. However, after it was split into 3 parts, its foundation was divided along with the division of the domain. Most importantly, this division wasn't fixed in stone. Due to that extremely mysterious and undetectable connection, Mount Fangsuan's foundation was like a flowing river. It would occasionally flow to the east, the south, and the west. This caused the distribution of the foundation to be unevenly distributed. More importantly, the flow of the foundation could be controlled by humans. A domain's foundation was directly related to the domain's level and strength. Even if everyone was from the miniature humans, none of them would wish for their domain's foundation to be weak. Hence, many tens of thousands of years ago, an extremely intense and long battle broke out between the 3 miniature humans of Mount Fangsuan. This battle was not a common battle. It was a battle between the powerful beings of the various tribes over the domain's foundation. In such a battle, the powerful beings of the 3 tribes did not even need to meet each other. They all stayed within their own domains and controlled the flow of the domain's foundation. It was like how the villagers in the mortal world fought for water during a drought. Everyone dug a reservoir in front of their own door. While they tried their best to preserve the water in their own reservoir, they also had to steal from the reservoirs of the other 2 houses. This was a method of battle that outsiders had never seen before. Haiding did not know what the final outcome was because many years had passed. However, that battle lasted for more than a century. During that century, whether it was Rizhao, Yuyao, or Xingxiu, all of them went into battle. The cultivators of the entire tribe were delayed because of this. It was rumored that the miniature humans were not on good terms with each other. This attracted the attention of the Blood Tribe, and a war broke out between them and the Blood Tribe. With that battle as the catalyst, the three tribes finally had the chance to sit down and have a good discussion. They decided on the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition. It could be said that this was a historical event that had been passed down for a very long time in the history of the little human race. It was held every 50 years, and during the martial arts exhibition in the Black Abyss, the various tribes of the little human race would imitate their ancestors and compete for the foundation of their domain, so that their domain would enjoy better treatment in the next 50 years. The stronger the domain's foundation, the purer and richer the world's spiritual energy would be, making it more convenient for the cultivators at the bottom to cultivate. The domain would also produce more spiritual ores, spiritual herbs, and even spiritual jades. Therefore, the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition, that was held every 50 years, could be said to be the most important matter for the three miniature humans. And the most recent Black Abyss martial arts exhibition would begin in 2 months. This kind of thing was undoubtedly very novel to Lu Yi and Nian Yuxian, who were born in the 9 regions. Although the 9 regions was not bad now, it was still inferior to the domain formed by a starry sky treasure like Mount Fengsuan. Therefore Lu Yi asked, "This Black Abyss martial arts exhibition, is it only for Constellation Realm cultivators? Otherwise, why would they find him?" Haiding nodded. The ancestors who set this rule all agreed that the number and quality of the constellations can best reflect the strength of a domain. Moreover, the environment of the Black Abyss is special. Only upper realm cultivators can move around there. Therefore this rule was set. Lu Yi nodded in agreement. The strength of a domain could indeed be seen from the number and quality of the constellations. No matter what, the constellations were all in the starry sky. Of course, there should be other considerations. At the very least, it was not suitable for Sunshine Realm cultivators to participate in such a thing. The martial arts exhibition was held once every 50 years. If only Sunshine Realm cultivators participated, they would probably get tired of it. The Ujade realm was also not good. The battle would cause too much of a commotion. Therefore, the constellations were the best choice. If it's a martial arts exhibition, how many people would each tribe send? Lu Yi asked again. He faintly realized one thing, which was that the number of people sent should not be too small. Because Haiteng previously said that a constellation that was scheduled to participate in the martial arts exhibition had a problem, and there was a shortage of people. As a top-level domain, Mount Fengsuan could be said to have a lot of constellations. If it were not for the large number of people who needed to participate, how could there be a shortage of people? 9 people. Lu Yi couldn't help but frown. It didn't make sense. How could Mount Fengsuan not be able to gather 9 constellations? One must know that there were almost 1,000 constellations in the 9 regions. Of course, this was related to the special situation of the 9 regions. As a newly promoted large-scale domain, there would naturally be a period of eruption of constellations. This was caused by the accumulation of too many Spirit Sea experts. However, once this eruption period passed, the frequency of constellations being born in the 9 regions would greatly decrease. In the end, it would maintain a stable state. Seeming to have seen through his doubts, Haiteng explained, "Although there are only 9 people, not every constellation has the qualifications to participate. The Black Abyss is an extremely special place. In a person's lifetime, they can only enter once. A constellation that has entered once cannot enter a second time no matter what. Therefore, generally speaking, the constellations that enter the Black Abyss to participate in the martial arts exercise are all newly promoted in the last 50 years." Lu Yi was enlightened. This explained it. Although there were many constellations in this domain, there were very few who were qualified to enter the Black Abyss. This was because the constellations that were promoted 50 years ago had basically all entered the Black Abyss. However, he quickly realized a problem. This matter can't be absolute, right? If 10 or more constellations were born in this domain in the last 50 years, then only 9 would need to enter. 1 or 2 would need to wait for the next 50 years to enter. That's right. Therefore, Most of the clansmen who participate in the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition are in the early stage of the constellation. A few are in the middle stage of the constellation. Occasionally, there would be a late stage of the constellation. Lu Yi nodded. Under such rules, there would indeed be more cultivators in the early stage of the constellation. This also showed the difference in the foundation of the three divisions of Mount Fengxuan. The stronger the foundation, and the more constellations there were, the more opportunities there were to choose from. The probability of a late-stage cultivator participating in the martial arts exhibition was also higher. The performance of the main division has always been poor. Lu Yi faintly sensed that they were almost unable to gather enough people to participate in the martial arts exhibition. Clearly, their foundation was not enough. In other words, in the last 50 years, there were no constellations left in the main division that could be used. In the last 50 years, only 9 constellations were born. This was just enough to meet the requirements of the martial arts exhibition. Haiting blushed slightly and lowered her head. Basically, we're always at the bottom. In the competition between the 3 divisions, it was fine to be at the bottom once or twice. However, if they were at the bottom every time, over time, it would inevitably affect the development of the entire domain's cultivation system. When that time came, there would be a vicious cycle where they would become weaker and weaker, and there would be less and less people to participate in the martial arts exhibition. Of course, the main division was not always at the bottom. 200 years ago, they were lucky enough to take second place. However, it was not of much use. To improve the overall environment of a domain, a mere 50 years was not enough. After listening to Haitong's explanation, Lu Yi knew that this matter was of great importance to the main division. If not for this, that stubborn old man Chen Xianhai would not have agreed so easily. Chapter 1323. As for why he was chosen instead of the other foreign constellations, imprisoned in Mount Fengxuan, Lu Yi guessed that it had something to do with his performance on Spectre Ship. Haiting couldn't have hidden what happened on Spectre Ship from Su Yuqing, and Chen Xianhai had probably heard about it as well. After all, Spectre Ship's test was extremely harsh, and if he could pass it, it must be extraordinary in the eyes of others. No problem, I'll agree. After learning about the Black Abyss drill, Lu Yi agreed without hesitation. There was no reason not to agree. It was nothing more than a competition under some complicated rules. And the participants were only constellations, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Haitong's head was still lowered, and she said softly, "There's one more thing I need to clarify with junior apprentice brother." Haitong's face suddenly reddened, and she hesitated for a moment before saying, "The Black Abyss is a bit special. Us lesser humans can enter freely, but if other races want to enter, they must possess the aura of our lesser humans, or they can't enter, and naturally can't participate in the drill." Lu Yi didn't understand. Possess the aura of your lesser humans? How can that be done? While he was still puzzled, Thought Moon Immortal, who had been silent all this time, suddenly understood. She carefully looked at Haitong's face, and said lightly, "Dual cultivation?" A woman's mind was more sensitive than a man's, and with Haitong's current state, Thought Moon Immortal immediately guessed. Lu Yi turned to look at her, surprised by Thought Moon Immortal's shocking words. Unexpectedly, Haiting actually nodded her head, her face so red it looked like blood was about to seep out. "That's right, so Master's intention is, junior apprentice brother Lu can find a suitable Dao companion in the Immortal Spirit Peak, and then cultivate with that person, and then you can enter the Black Abyss." She stuttered as she spoke, and Lu Yi was dumbfounded. He didn't understand why the topic suddenly changed to this. On the side, Thought Moon Immortal's lips curled up, and she smiled meaningfully. "Junior apprentice brother Lu, think about it carefully. Once you've decided, send me a message." With that, Haiting fled as fast as she could. Lu Yi raised his hand, wanting to stop her, and ask her a few more questions. But after thinking about it, he gave up. His face was full of worry. They were just talking about the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition. So how did they end up talking about Dao companions? Nian Yuxian looked at him from the side and said, I really have to congratulate junior martial brother. To think that there would be such a good thing. Lu Yi said snappily, Senior martial sister, don't tease me. How is this a good thing? Isn't it a good thing to have a Taoist companion for free? I didn't say I was going to agree. Lu Yi argued. Nianyu Immortal was surprised. Is Haitong's beauty not worthy of junior brother's attention? Lu Yi felt a headache coming on. This has nothing to do with looks. Besides, they only said that I can choose a Tao companion on the Immortal Spirit Peak. They didn't say that I have to choose her. Thought Moon Immortal snorted lightly. In this huge immortal spiritual peak, you only know Haitang. If you really want to choose a Tao companion, who else can it be other than her? Could it be that he had to choose Su Yuqing? If I'm not wrong, Su Yuqing's original words must be that she hoped you could become Tao companions with Haitang. It's just that Haitang is shy, so she changed her words when it came to you. Lu Yi naturally thought of this layer. Otherwise, Haitang wouldn't have suddenly blushed when they were talking just now. However, Lu Yi had never thought about choosing a Tao companion on the Immortal Spirit Peak to cultivate with. It wasn't that he didn't have any thoughts about beautiful women. Ever since he had sex with Wuxia, Lu Yi already knew the wonderful taste of it. However, if he really made such a choice, what would he do in the future? Since they were Tao companions, they should never leave each other. However, he had to return to the 9 regions. Could it be that he had to bring Haitang back to the 9 regions? He reckoned that Su Yuqing wouldn't agree. Similarly, Haitang might not be willing to leave her home. However, Lu Yi was also unwilling to stay on the Fengxun mountain. Therefore, this matter of Tao companions was really a bit difficult. Frowning, Lu Yi muttered, Senior martial sister, don't you think this matter is strange? Nianyu Immortal snorted. At least you're not confused by beauty. It seems that you've also noticed it. So senior martial sister also has such thoughts. Lu Yi originally thought that he was thinking too much, but now it seemed that he wasn't thinking too much. It was really the case. The Miniman clan's Black Abyss martial arts exhibition had been decided long ago. Now there were only less than 2 months left before such a big event. Su Yuqing asking him to choose a Tao companion at this time, to help him participate in the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition, was a bit hasty. What do you think is strange? Nianyu Immortal asked. Lu Yi said, previously, I wanted to take senior martial sister away. That Chen Xuanhai's condition was to let senior martial sister find a Tao companion here. This way, you won't be an outsider, and won't be restricted by the ancestral teachings. In the end, we refused, and then turned around and actually asked me to choose a Tao companion. In this way, did the Miniman clan originally want senior martial sister to participate in the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition? It didn't work out, and then they set their sights on me. Nianyu Immortal slowly shook her head. It shouldn't be like this. I'm just a newcomer to the constellation, and my foundation is not stable yet. It's impossible that Chen Xianhai didn't see it. If I participate in the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition, what can I achieve? The Black Abyss martial arts exhibition is a huge matter to the Miniman clan. There's no need for them to choose a participant so hastily. Lu Yi thought about it, and felt that it was true. Then I'm overthinking it? Nianyu Immortal said. Have you ever thought that Chen Xianhai asking me to choose a Tao companion is just a trick? What do you mean? Just like when you go to buy something, the seller will first give you a price that you will definitely refuse, and then give you a price that you can accept. Which one will you choose? Lu Yi came to a realization. Asking Nianyu Immortal to choose a Tao companion was a price that she would definitely refuse, and asking him to choose a Tao companion was a price that he could accept. After all, men and women were not the same. It had to be said that such a trick was effective, because when Lu Yi heard Haitang mention this matter, he seriously considered it, but in the end, he felt that it was not appropriate. Of course, now was not the time to give Haitang a clear reply. If that was the case, then Chen Xianhai did not take the matter seriously when he asked Nianyu Immortal to choose a Tao companion in the Miniman clan. This was because he knew that Nianyu Immortal would not agree. That was just a price that he put out to make her refuse. From then on, he had already had his eyes on him. Nianyu Immortal's spiritual will surged. and she quietly transmitted her voice. Junior brother, do you think that Master Haitang knows about all these twists and turns? Lu Yi wanted to say that she probably did not know, but on second thought, there were only 3 great sons in the main division. After interacting with each other for so many years, they knew each other very well. He was afraid that Su Yuqing would know what Chen Xianhai was about to say. How could Su Yuqing not know about Chen Xuanhai's schemes? He suddenly recalled something. When he first came to the main domain, Haitang had brought him to the Immortal Spirit Peak to visit Su Yuqing. Halfway there, Haitang had suddenly disappeared, and a fat man had appeared to block their path and fought with him. The other party did not seem to have any ill intentions, and was just purely testing him. It was obvious that he was testing his strength. Later, when he met Su Yuqing again, this woman also asked him many miscellaneous questions, including the matter of Dao companions. These various signs, if looked at individually, naturally did not make much of a difference. But if they were connected together, there was a lot of room for imagination. Lu Yao could still remember the obvious look of appreciation in Su Yuqing's eyes when he paid his respects to her. Looking back now, it did not seem like the simple appreciation of her disciple's savior, but more like a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law. I've fallen into their trap. Lu Yi slowly came to his senses. It was probably not only Chen Xianhai who had their eyes on him, or rather, it was not Chen Xianhai who had their eyes on him, but Su Yuqing. If that was really the case, then the fierce battle between Su Yuqing and Chen Xianhai was somewhat thought-provoking. Sure enough, one could not just look at the surface when these old fellows did things. Lu Yi faintly regretted it. If he had known this would happen, he would have performed very poorly when he fought with the fatty halfway up the Immortal Spirit Peak. That way, he would have saved a lot of trouble later. It was precisely because his performance was not bad that he was targeted. But at that time, although he had sensed that the fatty blocking the way was a test, he had mistakenly thought that he had to pass this test to continue climbing the peak. So how could he restrain himself? Generally speaking, the headquarters of the human clan did not have any malicious intentions towards him. This Lu Yi could feel, but to be schemed against like this, more or less did not feel good. Senior sister, why don't I just find a girl from the Immortal Spirit Peak? Anyway, I won't lose out. Lu Yi said, if you can pass the test in your heart, naturally you can, I won't stop you. Thought Moon Immortal curled her lips. What test in my heart? When the time comes, I'll just pull up my pants and be a passerby. Lu Yi straightened his neck. Nian Yuxian looked at him with a smile that was not a smile, and said encouragingly, then go. I'll wait for your good news. I'll go. Lu Yi angrily flew into the sky, and went straight to the Immortal Spirit Peak. But after flying a short distance he turned around and flew back. What did you lose? Did you lose your sense of shame? Thought Moon Immortal looked at him mockingly. Lu Ye's face reddened. I've thought about it carefully, this is indeed not very good. Let me think about it again. He went into his room, opened the restriction, and concentrated on thinking. Thought Moon Immortal looked in his direction, pondered for a moment, then took out her own sound talisman, and sent out a message. The sound talisman was refined for her by Lu Yi. The people she could contact now were limited. Aside from Lu Yi, there was only Haitang. She had already exchanged contact imprints with Haitang before. She quickly received a reply, and flew up to the sky. At the foot of the Immortal Spirit Peak, Thought Moon Immortal saw Haitang waiting there, and nodded slightly. Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist. Haitang's expression was not very natural, although she had previously told Lu Yi that he could choose any girl from the Immortal Spirit Peak to be his Taoist companion. The real meaning behind her words was believed to be understood by Thought Moon Immortal and Lu Yi. After all, they were not idiots. Chapter 1324. Haitang did not expect that her master's seemingly casual talk about becoming Tao companions would become reality so soon. She did not reject the idea of becoming Tao companions with Lu Yi. No matter what, her life was saved by Lu Yi. If Lu Yi had not taken her out of the Spectre ship, she would not be who she was today. What did it matter if she gave herself to him? Moreover, Lu Yi gave her a good impression. If she really became Tao companions with Lu Yi, then Thought Moon Immortal would be part of her in-laws. Haiding naturally felt a little uncomfortable facing her now. She did not ask what Lu Yi had decided. She was too embarrassed to ask, so she silently flew up with Thought Moon Immortal. However, she could clearly feel that Thought Moon Immortal behind her was examining her from head to toe, like a sister-in-law examining her future sister-in-law. She wanted to see if she had wide hips and big buttocks, and if she would be able to bear children in the future. Haiding felt more and more uncomfortable with her thoughts running wild. Fortunately, Thought Moon Immortal sensed it. She flew 2 steps forward and walked side by side with her. She took the initiative to say, Lu Yi is still thinking. I don't know what decision he will make. However, fellow Taoist Haiding, I hope that no matter what decision he makes, it will not affect your friendship. It is not easy to cross paths in this vast starry sky. Haiding kept nodding. I understand what you mean. No matter what decision junior brother Lu makes, I have no problems on my side. Thought Moon Immortal smiled. Fellow Taoist is a good woman. After a few words of chit-chat, Haiding relaxed and was no longer as reserved as before. They were all women, so there was naturally a lot to talk about. After chatting for a while, they reached the top of Immortal Spirit Peak. Master is inside. Fellow Taoist, please go ahead. I have already reported to Master. Thank you. Thought Moon Immortal thanked her and walked towards the main hall. Entering the main hall, she saw a woman in white sitting inside. She bowed respectfully. Greetings, Senior. Su Yuqing nodded slightly and gestured with her hand. Sit. Thought Moon Immortal sat down. Without waiting for Su Yuqing to speak, she said bluntly, I came here to ask Senior a question. Lu Yi did not care about some things, but as Lu Ye's senior sister, she had to find out for Lu Yi first. Otherwise, she would not have come to visit Su Yuqing. Su Yuqing looked at her with interest. What is it? Nianyu Immortal said. If that junior brother of mine really does choose a Tao companion in the Immortal Spirit Peak, does that mean that he will have to stay on Mount Innerheart to cultivate in the future? Su Yuqing thought that she was going to ask a more pointed question, but she didn't expect it to be this. She smiled slightly and said, The Little People tribe is very generous to our friends and guests. All of our friends and guests can come and go freely. Our Little People tribe will not interfere at all. However, Thought Moon Immortal wasn't satisfied with her answer. She shook her head and said, If he really chose a Tao companion here, then he wouldn't be a friend nor a guest. He would be half a member of Mount Fangxuan. Now that he thought about it, that was indeed the case. Su Yuqing said seriously, When the time comes, if he is willing to stay in our domain he can stay. If not, he can leave with his Taoist companion. I will not stop him. Thought Moon Immortal's gaze was threatening. Even if he chose fellow Taoist Haiding? Su Yuqing nodded. Even if he chose Haiding. Of course. Whether Haiding is willing to leave with him is also up to her. Although I am her master, I will not order her to do anything. Thought Moon Immortal said. Senior is a good master. Su Yuqing laughed self-deprecatingly. If I was really a good master, I would not use my own disciple to scheme against him. She didn't say it clearly, but she knew that Thought Moon Immortal could understand. In fact, the fact that Thought Moon Immortal came to the Immortal Spirit Peak at this time already explained many things. However, they were all cultivators. There were some things that needed to be known and didn't need to be pointed out. Su Yuqing sighed. No matter what, the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition matches are the most important thing to our domain. If not for the lack of talents in our domain, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. She changed the topic and said seriously, However, there is one thing that I still need to tell you. Although I used my own disciple to scheme against him, not just anyone has the qualifications for me to scheme against him. Haiding is a very good child. If she can find a good home because of this as her master, I will also be gratified. Thought Moon Immortal's eyes flashed. On the way here, I specially asked fellow Taoist Haitang about the battle of the deity Sea of the reincarnation tree. However, fellow Taoist Haitang said that the situation here at Mount Fangxuan is special. There is no clone of the reincarnation tree, so the human clan did not participate in such a grand event. and did not know much about the previous battle of the deity sea. Did fellow Taoist Haiding lie to me? Su Yuqing looked at Thought Moon Immortal with admiration. Lady, you are also very intelligent. I can't believe you actually thought of this. Nian Yuxian said. It's not that I'm intelligent, it's just that I don't understand. That junior brother of mine is only at the early stage of the constellation realm. How can he be valued so highly by all of you? You're even thinking of ways to get him to help participate in the Black Abyss exhibition matches. You're even willing to let your own disciple become his Tao companion. Aren't you afraid of entrusting him to the wrong person? Senior, how can you be sure that once fellow Taoist Haitang and my junior brother become Tao companions, you'll really have a good home? Haitang did not lie to you, Su Yuqing explained. In fact, even Chen Xianhai and Wu Qima did not know about the previous battle of the deity sea. I only knew about it because of a coincidence. Thought Moon Immortal understood. So when Haitang brought him back, Senior already knew that my junior brother was Wuxia from the Nine Heavens realm. In the battle of the deity sea, he was able to suppress everyone with a cultivation that was weaker than everyone else. Even those monstrous geniuses from the top realms could not compete with him. Such a junior is rare. If Haitang follows him, she will definitely not be wrong. So he is qualified to participate in the Black Abyss martial arts exhibition matches. If that's the case, Junior understands. Thought Moon Immortal nodded slightly. This conversation with Su Yuqing had solved the biggest doubt in her heart. In the end, it was still caused by Wuxia being in the limelight at the reincarnation tree. Slowly getting up, Thought Moon Immortal bowed again. Thank you for clearing my doubts, Senior. Junior will take her leave. Wait a moment. Su Yuqing stopped her. According to your understanding of your junior brother, what choice do you think he will make? Thought Moon Immortal thought for a moment and said, Actually, we are not from the same sect, so I don't know him that well. But if I were to make a bold guess, I think he will reject this matter. Su Yuqing frowned. He won't lose anything. Why would he reject it? If he agreed to this matter, he would pick up a Tao companion who was as beautiful as a flower and had a decent cultivation. Moreover, he would be able to mend his relationship with the lesser humans forever. Where else could he find such a good thing? Conscience. Thought Moon Immortal smiled slightly. He indeed won't lose anything. But if he really agrees, then where should he go? Staying at Mount Fengsuan is not his wish. He definitely won't have the heart to take fellow Taoist Haitang away. After all, to the lesser humans, Mount Fengsuan is their home. Who would be willing to leave home and follow an outsider to another realm? Senior, junior brother has told me about the Spectre ship before. You also know the choice he made in the end. If he is a heartless person, he could have chosen a treasure to take away instead of fellow Taoist Haitang. Thought Moon Immortal left briskly, leaving Su Yuqing frowning and muttering to herself. After all her calculations, she suddenly realized that she seemed to have missed out on one thing. That was Wuxia's own moral standards. This was originally a shining point of human nature, but now, it had become the biggest obstacle in her calculations. It had to be said that it was extremely laughable. But then again, if Wuxia did not have such a shining point, Haitang would not have been able to escape safely, and there would not have been any subsequent events. This matter was somewhat contradictory, but the more it was like this, the more she hoped that Haitang could become Tao companions with him. Not only for the sake of this Black Abyss martial arts exhibition tournament, but also for Haitang's future. His aptitude was monstrous, his strength was not ordinary, and he was so kind. Where could she find such a man? But now she had to consider another problem. If Wuxia really rejected her, what should she do? If that was really the case, it meant that all her previous calculations and schemes would be for naught. It was impossible to use force. How could she force a cow to drink water? Moreover, it was indeed unrealistic to use force on a constellation. While she was still thinking, Haitang sent another message, saying that Wuxia wanted to see her. Had he made a decision? Su Yuqing naturally had no reason to refuse. She also wanted to know if Thought Moon Immortal's bold guess was correct. A moment later, Wuxia, who had received a reply, flew to the top of Immortal Spirit Peak under Haitang's lead. He did not know that Thought Moon Immortal had already made a trip here before him. Because by the time he figured it out and walked out, Thought Moon Immortal had already returned. A moment later, he sat on the praying mat that Thought Moon Immortal had previously sat on. Not far in front of him was Su Yuqing. Have you made a decision? Even with her bright cultivation base, Su Yuqing could not help but feel a little apprehensive when she asked this question. Wuxia said seriously, yes. Please forgive me, Senior. This junior is willing to help our realm participate in the Black Abyss Martial Arts Exhibition Tournament. However, regarding the matter of choosing a Dao companion here, this junior is afraid that I will have to disappoint Senior. May I ask why? Su Yuqing asked. Wuxia said, since we are Dao companions, we should support each other. If this junior really chooses a Dao companion here, I cannot bear to take her away, nor can I stay to accompany her. I fear that it will be very difficult for me to see her again in the future. If I delay her life like this, I will not feel at ease. It was exactly as Thought Moon Immortal had predicted. Such an answer should be praised. But Su Yuqing would rather Wuxia give a different answer at this moment. She sighed in her heart and suddenly felt powerless. She looked at Wuxia with a complicated expression. Unexpectedly, he changed the topic and said, so this junior has thought of a compromise. Senior, please see if it is appropriate. Su Yuqing was curious. What is it? Senior Haidang said that if I want to enter the Black Abyss, I have to have the aura of the hominid tribe. Since that is the case, I don't have to choose a Dao companion, right? I just need to cultivate with a woman from the hominid tribe. Senior, can you see if you can find a suitable widowed candidate for me? This junior has a strong body, so there should be no problem. The corners of Su Yuqing's eyes twitched slightly. She suddenly realized that this kid did not seem to have such a noble character as she had imagined. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.